You've been waiting for the perfect moment, the right Monday, the first of the month, January 1st, after the vacation, when things settle down, when you feel ready. And while you've been waiting, your life has been happening without you. Here's what nobody tells you. Transformation doesn't require months of preparation, expensive courses, or a complete life overhaul. It doesn't ask for your permission, and it definitely doesn't wait for you to feel ready. What it requires is 7 days, 1 week, 168 hours to demolish the person you've been tolerating and build someone you actually respect. Sound impossible? Good. That means you're exactly where you need to be. Because the comfortable lies you've been telling yourself, that change takes time, that you need to understand yourself better first, that small steps are safer, those aren't wisdom. They're the sedatives you've been using to numb the burning truth that you're capable of so much more than you're currently living. This isn't a book about gradual improvement. This is about controlled detonation. 5 specific habits, 7 consecutive days, 1 unrecognizable life. Hey, drop a comment right now. What's the one excuse you keep using to delay your own transformation? Write it down, because in 7 days, it won't exist anymore. The science is clear. Neuroplasticity researchers at University College London have shown that significant behavioral patterns can establish neural pathways in as little as 18 to 254 days. But the initial momentum, the spark that ignites everything, happens in the first week. That's when your brain stops fighting you and starts rewiring itself. But here's where most people fail. They think habits are about repetition. They're not. They're about identity. And your identity can shift in a single decision, reinforced over 7 days until the old you becomes a stranger you used to know. You're not going to ease into this. You're going to dive. And on the other side of these 7 days, you'll surface as someone different, someone who doesn't need motivation because discipline has become your default setting. The 5 habits you're about to learn aren't cute productivity hacks or mindfulness exercises you'll forget by Thursday. They're precision tools designed to rewire your nervous system, restructure your daily architecture, and force you into direct confrontation with the person you've been avoiding becoming. This is going to be uncomfortable. Actually, it's going to be excruciating at moments. Because real change isn't a warm bath. It's surgery without anesthesia. But you already knew that, didn't you? That's why you're still here. So let's make a deal. Give me 7 days. Not half-hearted attempts, not I'll try energy. 7 days of complete, uncompromising commitment to these 5 habits. In return, I'll show you how to become unrecognizable to everyone who thought they knew you, including yourself. Starting right now. Chapter 1. The Lie of Someday. There's a specific moment when people decide to change. Not when they're inspired, not when they're motivated, not when they're reading the perfect book or watching the transformational video. They decide to change when staying the same becomes more painful than the fear of transformation. You're there right now, aren't you? Maybe you don't see it yet. Maybe you're still telling yourself this is just another self-help exploration, another attempt, another round of trying to fix what feels broken. But something's different this time. You can feel it. That low-grade anxiety that hums beneath everything you do. The quiet disgust when you look in the mirror. Not at your body, but at your eyes. At the person staring back who's been making the same promises for months, maybe years. This is your reckoning. And the first thing we need to destroy is the most seductive lie you've ever believed. That you'll change when you're ready. You won't. Because ready is a fantasy manufactured by fear to keep you comfortable. Ready is the carrot dangling just far enough ahead that you can justify staying exactly where you are. Ready is what you tell yourself when you want the results of transformation without the violence of actually transforming. Here's the truth that's going to set you free. Nobody is ever ready. The person who lost 100 pounds wasn't ready. The entrepreneur who built the business wasn't ready. The artist who finally created wasn't ready. They were terrified, underprepared, and completely unsure it would work. But they started anyway. Not someday, not when conditions were perfect, not when they felt like it. They started on a random Tuesday, probably exhausted, probably doubting themselves, probably with 1,000 logical reasons to wait. And that's exactly where you are right now. Researchers at the Dominican University of California found that people who commit to specific, written goals with accountability are 42% more likely to achieve them. But here's what the study really revealed. The commitment came first. The readiness came later, sometimes weeks later. You don't build confidence and then act. You act and confidence follows like a shadow. So why 7 days? Because 7 days is long enough to break the pattern, but short enough that your fear can't talk you out of it. It's the perfect window. Cramped, urgent, relentless. Your excuses don't have time to evolve. Your doubts don't have space to breathe. 7 days forces you into a corner where the only way out is through. Think about the last week of your life. What did it look like? If you're honest, brutally uncomfortably honest, it probably looked almost identical to the week before it. And the week before that. Same routines, same thoughts, same complaints, same promises to yourself that tomorrow will be different. This is called the sameness trap. And it's not accidental. Your brain is hardwired for predictability. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network, a series of neural pathways that activate when you're on autopilot, conserving energy by repeating familiar patterns. It's efficient. It's safe. It's also slowly killing the person you could become. Because while your brain is protecting you from the discomfort of change, life is happening. Opportunities are passing. Time is collapsing. The gap between who you are and who you're capable of being is widening into a canyon you'll eventually need a miracle to cross. Unless you stop right now. Not Monday, not next month, not when you've figured it all out. Now. If you're still here, if something in you is stirring, drop a comment. What version of yourself are you finally ready to stop being? Say it out loud. Make it real. Here's what's going to happen over the next 7 days. You're going to implement 5 specific habits. Not simultaneously. That's a recipe for failure. Sequentially, building on each other. Each one designed to destabilize a different pillar of your current identity. The first habit will attack your mornings, the foundation of your entire day. The second will force you into the conversation you've been avoiding, the one that's quietly draining your energy and credibility. The third will reconnect you to your body, because you can't think your way into a new life, you have to move into it. The fourth will hijack your consumption patterns. What you feed your mind determines who you become. The fifth will invert your perspective on gratitude, turning it from a passive feeling into an active weapon against stagnation. Each habit takes less than 30 minutes. Some take less than 5. But their combined impact will fracture the glass ceiling you've been living under without even realizing it was there. You're not going to ease into this. There's no warm-up, no preparation phase. Day 1 starts with the hardest habit, and it only intensifies from there. Why? Because the version of you that would ease in is the same version that's been stuck for months. We're not renovating that person. We're demolishing them. And here's the part that's going to make you uncomfortable. You're going to fail at some point during these 7 days. You're going to miss a habit, sleep through an alarm, give in to the old pattern, and in that moment, the voice that's kept you small will whisper, "See, I told you this wouldn't work. You're not disciplined enough. You're not strong enough." That voice is a liar. Failure isn't the problem. Stopping after failure is. The people who transform aren't the ones who execute perfectly. They're the ones who fail.
feel the shame, and then do the habit anyway, sometimes hours late, sometimes poorly, but they do it. Because the habit isn't the point. The identity shift is. Every time you follow through after failing, you're sending a signal to your nervous system. I'm someone who keeps promises to myself, even when it's hard, even when I don't want to, even when nobody's watching. That signal repeated over 7 days becomes your new baseline. And by day 7, the person who started this journey will feel like a stranger, not because you've changed everything, but because you've changed the only thing that matters, your relationship with your own word. You've heard that motivation is fleeting and discipline is forever. That's partially true. But discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, one uncomfortable decision at a time, until the discomfort becomes your new comfort zone. 7 days from now, you're going to wake up different. Not perfect, not finished, but undeniably, measurably different. And that difference will be the crack in the dam. The moment when you realize that everything you've been tolerating, the procrastination, the self-doubt, the comfort-seeking, wasn't protecting you. It was imprisoning you. So here's your first decision. Are you in? Not maybe. Not I'll try. In. Because if you're going to half commit, you might as well stop reading now. Half commitment is just slow motion failure with extra steps. But if you're ready, not because you feel ready, but because you're done waiting to feel ready, then take a breath. This is the last moment you'll be this version of yourself. In 7 days, you'll look back at this moment and barely recognize the person who was afraid to start. Chapter 2, The 7-Day Reckoning. Let's talk about what's actually going to happen this week. Not the fantasy version where you glide effortlessly through each habit, feeling inspired and energized. The real version. The one where you're going to question everything, resist constantly, and wonder why you thought this was a good idea. Because transformation isn't linear. It's not a gentle upward slope. It's a violent oscillation between breakthrough and breakdown, and the only way through is to stop expecting it to feel good. Day 1 is deceptive. You'll wake up with that burst of new beginning energy, the kind that makes everything feel possible. You'll execute the first habit. We'll get to exactly what that is in a moment, and you'll feel proud, capable, like maybe this time really is different. Day 1 is a liar. It's giving you beginner's luck to seduce you into thinking this will be easy. It won't be. Day 2 is where the first cracks appear. The newness has worn off. Your body is tired from disrupting its routine. The habit that felt exciting yesterday now feels like an obligation. This is where most people quit. Not dramatically, but quietly. They skip the habit once, tell themselves they'll double up tomorrow, and never do. You're not going to be most people. Day 3 is the reckoning. This is where your nervous system stages a full rebellion. Every excuse you've ever used will surface with crystal clarity. You'll be more aware of how tired you are, how busy you are, how this isn't the right time after all. Your brain will offer you 1,000 rational reasons to stop. This is not self-sabotage. This is your survival mechanism doing exactly what it's designed to do: protect you from change. Because to your nervous system, change equals danger. It doesn't matter if the change is positive. Uncertainty is a threat, and your brain will fight it with everything it has. But here's the secret. You don't need to silence that voice. You just need to do the habit anyway. Day 4 is where the shift begins. It's subtle. You won't feel transformed. But if you've pushed through the resistance of day 3, something in you has fundamentally changed. You've proven to yourself that you can act even when every fiber of your being is begging you to stop. That proof is more valuable than motivation. It's evidence. Day 5 is momentum. The habits are starting to feel less like foreign objects you're forcing into your life and more like natural extensions of who you're becoming. You're not there yet. Don't mistake familiarity for mastery, but you can feel the difference. People around you might start noticing something's shifted, even if they can't name it. Day 6 is dangerous. You're close enough to the finish line that your brain will try one last negotiation. You've done so well. You've proven you can do this. You can take today off. You've earned it. Don't listen. Day 6 is where you separate yourself from everyone who almost changed their life. This is where you learn that discipline isn't about doing it when you feel like it. It's about doing it especially when you don't. Day 7 is reckoning and revelation. You wake up and realize you've done something you didn't think you were capable of. Not because the habits themselves are superhuman, they're not, but because you spent a week becoming someone who keeps promises to themselves. And that person is dangerous. Dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to comfort, dangerous to every limiting belief you've been carrying around like a security blanket. Drop a comment. Which day scares you the most? 3? 6? Tell me why. Because naming the fear is the first step to destroying it. Now, let's talk about what makes these 7 days different from every other time you've tried to change. Structure. Most people fail at transformation because they rely on willpower, which is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. Researchers at Stanford University found that willpower operates like a muscle. It fatigues with use and requires recovery. That's why just try harder doesn't work.
What works is removing the need for willpower entirely by engineering your environment and schedule so that the habit becomes the path of least resistance. Each of the 5 habits you're going to learn is designed with this principle in mind. They're not aspirational, they're structural. They don't require you to be a different person to start them, they make you a different person by doing them. And here's the part that's going to save you. We're not doing all 5 habits from day 1. That's a rookie mistake, and it's why most people crash by day 3. Instead, you're going to layer them. Day 1, habit 1. Day 2, habit 1 plus 2. Day 3, habits 1, 2 plus 3. Day 4, habits 1 through 4. Day 5 through 7, all 5. This creates a cascading momentum. Each habit builds on the previous one, and by the time you're executing all 5, they're not 5 separate tasks, they're one integrated system. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing the operating system that determines what you do. And once that operating system updates, everything else follows. Your decisions become sharper, your energy stabilizes, your tolerance for bullshit from yourself and others evaporates. You become someone who doesn't need to be convinced to do the right thing because the right thing has become your default setting. But let's be clear about something. This isn't going to fix everything in your life. 7 days won't erase your debt, heal your trauma, or repair your relationships. What it will do is prove to you that you're capable of change, real, tangible, undeniable change. And that proof is the seed of everything else. Because once you know you can transform in 7 days, you stop seeing your problems as permanent conditions and start seeing them as solvable puzzles. The question stops being, can I change? And becomes, what do I want to change next? Here's what happens after day 7. And this is the part nobody talks about. You'll feel incredible for about 24 hours, maybe 48. And then, quietly, almost imperceptibly, the old patterns will start whispering again. Not because you failed, but because 7 days is just the beginning. The real test is day 8, day 14, day 30. The real test is whether you can take the identity you built in 7 days and expand it into a lifestyle. Most people can sprint. Few can sustain. But you're not building a sprint. You're building a foundation. And foundations don't crumble under pressure, they hold everything else up. If this is hitting different than you expected, hit subscribe right now. You know what's wild? About 85% of people listening to this won't. They'll consume, feel inspired, and move on. Don't be that person. Subscribing is how you tell me this matters and how I know to keep creating more transformations like this one. Let me tell you what's going to try to stop you this week. Not external obstacles, those are easy to identify and plan for. It's going to be the voice inside your head that sounds exactly like you, that knows all your weak spots, that speaks in your language and uses your doubts against you. Psychologists call this the inner critic, but that term is too soft. It's not a critic, it's a saboteur, and it's been running your life for longer than you want to admit. This week, you're going to meet it face to face, and you're going to do the habits anyway. Not because you've silenced it, you can't, but because you've learned that you don't need silence to act. You just need commitment. 7 days, 5 habits, 1 unrecognizable life. Let's begin.
Chapter 3. Habit 1. The Morning Disruption. Your morning is a lie. Not the aspirational morning you post about on social media or the one you imagine successful people have. Your actual morning. The one that starts with hitting snooze 3 times, scrolling your phone before your feet hit the floor, and stumbling through the first 2 hours in a fog of reactive decisions. That morning isn't setting you up for success. It's programming failure into your nervous system before you've even had coffee. Here's what nobody tells you about mornings. The first 60 minutes of your day create a neurological template that your brain will try to replicate for the next 16 hours. If you start scattered, you'll stay scattered. If you start reactive, you'll stay reactive. If you start defeated, you'll stay defeated. The first habit is designed to detonate that pattern. And it starts before you're even conscious. Welcome to the morning disruption. Here's what you're going to do, starting tomorrow, not Monday, not next week, tomorrow. You're going to wake up 1 hour earlier than you currently do. I can already feel your resistance. You're already thinking about how tired you are, how you barely get enough sleep as it is, how this will wreck you. Good. That resistance is your brain protecting the identity you're trying to shed. Listen to it, acknowledge it, and then completely ignore it. Because here's the truth. You're not actually sleep deprived. You're purpose deprived. Study after study shows that the average person spends between 2 and 4 hours per day on their phone. 2 to 4 hours. You have the time. You've just been spending it scrolling through other people's lives instead of building your own. So we're taking that hour back. But here's the crucial part, and this is where most people fail. Waking up early isn't the habit. What you do with that hour is. Because if you wake up an hour early just to scroll, stress, or stumble around aimlessly, you haven't disrupted anything. You've just moved your dysfunction to an earlier time slot. The morning disruption has 3 non-negotiable components, and you're going to execute all 3 in order every single morning for the next 7 days. Component 1. The silence protocol. 10 minutes. The moment you wake up, before you check your phone, before you speak to another human, before you turn on the news or music or anything else, you sit in complete silence. Not meditation, unless that's already your practice. Not journaling. Not planning. Just silence. 10 minutes of doing absolutely nothing except existing in the same room as yourself. This will feel excruciating at first. Your mind will riot. It'll throw every urgent thought, every anxiety, every task at you to get you to break the silence. Don't. What you're doing in these 10 minutes is reclaiming your attention. You're teaching your nervous system that you, not your phone, not your email, not the world's demands, get first access to your consciousness. Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist at Stanford, has shown that the first light exposure and mental activity of your day sets your cortisol rhythm, the hormone that determines your energy and stress levels for the entire day. 10 minutes of silence allows your system to calibrate naturally without the jarring disruption of information overload. You're not trying to think profound thoughts. You're not trying to feel zen. You're simply proving to yourself that you can sit with yourself without distraction. That proof is radical. Component 2. The physical stake. 10 minutes. Immediately after silence, you move. Not a full workout, that comes later with habit 3. This is different. 10 minutes of movement intense enough that you can't think about anything else. Push-ups until failure, sprints, jump rope, burpees, shadow boxing. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's physically demanding enough to flood your system with adrenaline and endorphins. This isn't about fitness, it's about state change. You're using your body to shock your nervous system out of its sleep state lethargy into activation mode. You're proving to yourself before the day has even started that you're someone who does hard things. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding discomfort. You're going to seek it out before breakfast. That shift in relationship to discomfort will change everything. Component 3. The intention lock. 10 minutes. After movement, you sit down with a notebook, not your phone, a physical notebook, and you write 3 things. First, one non-negotiable priority for the day. Not your entire to-do list, one thing. The thing that, if you accomplished nothing else, would make today a win. Second, one specific obstacle you'll likely face and exactly how you'll handle it when it appears. This is called implementation intention, and research by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer shows it increases follow-through by up to 91%. You're not hoping you'll have willpower when the obstacle appears. You're pre-deciding your response so that when it happens, you don't have to think. You just execute. Third, one person you're grateful for and why. Specific, detailed, visceral. Not I'm grateful for my partner, but I'm grateful for the way my partner looked at me last Tuesday when I was spiraling and said nothing, just sat next to me until I could breathe again. This trains your brain to hunt for evidence of abundance instead of scarcity. And what your brain hunts for, it finds more of. 30 minutes total. Silence, movement, intention. That's the morning disruption. You do this before you check your phone, before you talk to anyone, before you consume any information from the outside world. You do this even on weekends, even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Hey, take a second, drop a comment below. What time are you committing to wake up tomorrow? Write the exact time. Make it real. Make it public.
Here's what's going to happen when you start this. Day 1, like I said, will feel powerful. You'll feel like you've unlocked something. Day 2, you'll wake up sore from the movement and exhausted from the early alarm. You'll question whether this is sustainable. Day 3, you'll sleep through your alarm or talk yourself into just starting tomorrow. This is the make or break moment. If you skip day 3, you've just confirmed to your subconscious that you're still the person who quits when it gets hard, and that person will carry that confirmation into every other area of your life. But if you drag yourself out of bed on day 3, even if you're late, even if you do a terrible job, even if you only manage 5 minutes of each component, you've just shattered a pattern that's been running your life for years. You've proven that the discomfort of change is survivable. And once you know it's survivable, it stops controlling you. By day 4 or 5, something shifts. The alarm doesn't feel like an assault anymore. The silence doesn't feel like torture. The movement doesn't feel impossible. It starts feeling like who you are. And by day 7, when you wake up without an alarm, and you will, your circadian rhythm adjusts fast, you'll realize something profound. You've been living your entire life on everyone else's schedule. Your employers, your families, your phones. This hour is yours. And once you own your morning, you start owning your life. Here's the neuroscience behind why this works. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and long-term planning, is most active in the morning. It's fresh, fully resourced, not yet depleted by the day's decisions. When you use that peak cognitive window to do something difficult by choice, you're essentially loading your willpower reserves for the entire day. Every subsequent decision becomes easier because you've already proven to yourself that you're capable of doing hard things. This is called decision momentum, and it's the reason why people who exercise in the morning tend to make better food choices throughout the day, not because the exercise burned calories, but because the discipline compounds. One hard decision makes the next one easier. But here's the trap most people fall into. They make the morning routine too complicated. They tried to meditate for an hour, journal 10 pages, do a full workout, read, plan their entire day, make a gourmet breakfast, and listen to a podcast. By day 3, they're exhausted, and they quit. The morning disruption works because it's minimal, specific, and non-negotiable. 30 minutes, 3 components, 0 room for negotiation. You're not trying to become a monk. You're trying to become someone who honors their word to themselves. And that person is built in small, uncomfortable increments. Let me tell you what this looked like for me. I spent years knowing I should have a morning routine. I'd read all the books, listened to all the podcasts, bought the journals, and every time I tried, I'd last 3 days, maybe a week if I was really motivated, and then I'd collapse back into my old pattern. The problem wasn't that I didn't know what to do, it's that I was trying to build the perfect morning, instead of building the discipline to have any morning at all. So I stripped it down to the absolute minimum. 10 minutes of silence that felt like sitting in my own anxiety. 10 minutes of push-ups and sprints that left me gasping. 10 minutes of writing that forced me to be honest about what actually mattered. It was ugly. It was uncomfortable. It didn't feel transformational. But I did it. And on day 8, I woke up and realized I'd kept a promise to myself for 7 consecutive days. Something I hadn't done in years. That realization cracked something open. If I could do this, what else was I capable of? That question is the gateway to everything. The morning disruption isn't about mornings. It's about identity. It's about becoming someone who doesn't wait to feel motivated, someone who doesn't negotiate with themselves, someone who decided who they're going to be and then acts like that person even when, especially when, it's hard. Your current morning routine is a mirror of your current life. Chaotic morning, chaotic life. Reactive morning, reactive life. Intentional morning, intentional life. You can't think your way into a new life. You have to build it, one morning at a time. So here's your assignment, and this starts tomorrow, no exceptions. Set your alarm for 1 hour earlier than usual. Put your phone across the room so you have to physically get up to turn it off. The moment you're vertical, go directly to your silent space. 10 minutes, then move. 10 minutes, then write. 10 minutes. 30 minutes total between sleep and the rest of your day. That's it. No perfection required, no special equipment, no ideal conditions. Just you making a decision and then keeping it. 7 days. By day 7, you won't recognize your mornings. And once your mornings change, everything else starts shifting too. Your energy, your decisions, your tolerance for your own excuses. Tomorrow morning, the old you will try to negotiate, will try to sleep in, will try to convince you that you need rest more than you need discipline. That voice has been winning for too long. Tomorrow, you let the new you win. Just once, and then again the next day, and the next, until the new you isn't new anymore. Until it's just you.
Chapter 4. The Physics of Momentum. There's a law in physics that most people know, but few people internalize. An object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest. Newton's first law. It's not a metaphor. It's not motivational. It's literal physics governing the universe. And it's governing your life right now. If you've been stuck in your career, your relationships, your body, your bank account, You haven't been stuck because you're lazy or broken or fundamentally flawed. You've been stuck because you're at rest. And objects at rest require enormous energy to overcome inertia and start moving. That's what yesterday's morning disruption was, the applied force necessary to overcome your inertia. But here's the part that changes everything. Once you're moving, staying in motion requires far less energy than starting did. That's momentum. And momentum is the most powerful force in personal transformation. Not willpower, not motivation, not discipline. Momentum. Because momentum doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't care if you're tired or uninspired or doubting yourself. It just keeps moving, and you move with it. But momentum is also fragile, especially in the beginning. One missed morning, and it shatters. One broken promise to yourself, and you're back at rest, needing to generate that massive starting force all over again. This is why day 2 is so critical. Yesterday, you disrupted your pattern. You woke up early. You did the silence, the movement, the intention setting. You felt powerful. Today, you're going to feel tired. And the voice in your head is going to offer you a very reasonable deal. You did so well yesterday. You proved you can do this. Take today off. You've earned it. Start fresh tomorrow. That voice sounds like self-compassion. It's not. It's inertia trying to pull you back to rest. And if you listen to it, you've just confirmed that yesterday was a fluke, not a pattern. You've told your nervous system that when it gets uncomfortable, you fold. So today, you're going to do the morning disruption again. Not because you feel like it, not because it's easy, but because momentum is built in the second rep, not the first. Anyone can do something once. That's novelty. Doing it twice, especially when you don't want to, that's commitment. And commitment is the bridge between who you've been and who you're becoming. But we're not just repeating yesterday. Today, we're adding the second habit. And this one is going to make you uncomfortable in a completely different way. Because the first habit was about you and your mornings. Private, controllable, safe. The second habit is about other people. And that's where most transformations collapse. Here's the second habit, and I want you to take a breath before you read it, because your brain is going to resist immediately. Habit 2. The conversation you're avoiding. There's a conversation you need to have that you've been putting off. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. It appeared in your mind the second you read that sentence. It might be with your boss about the boundaries you need to set. It might be with your partner about the resentment that's quietly eroding your relationship. It might be with a friend who's been draining your energy for months. It might be with yourself about the truth you've been avoiding. Whoever it's with, whatever it's about, you've been delaying it because you're afraid. Afraid of conflict. Afraid of being seen as difficult. Afraid of the discomfort that honesty creates. Afraid that if you say what needs to be said, everything will fall apart. So you've been managing the situation instead of resolving it, dropping hints instead of speaking directly, hoping it will magically improve without you having to do the hard thing. It won't. And every day you delay that conversation, you're leaking energy. You're carrying the weight of unsaid words, unexpressed boundaries, unresolved tension. That weight is exhausting you more than any physical task ever could. Today, not this week, not when you feel ready, today, you're going to have that conversation. Real talk. Drop a comment right now. Who's the conversation with? You don't have to share details, just acknowledge it, because the moment you name it, you can't unsee it. Here's why this habit is sequenced on day 2. Yesterday, you prove you could control your internal environment, your morning, your mind, your body. Today, you're going to prove you can navigate your external environment with the same intentionality. because transformation that only happens in private isn't transformation, it's rehearsal. Real change happens when you take the person you're becoming and test them in the world. And nothing tests you faster than difficult conversations. Most people avoid conflict because they've been conditioned to believe that discomfort equals danger, that if someone is upset with you, you failed, that maintaining peace is more important than maintaining integrity. That conditioning is destroying your life, because every time you avoid a difficult conversation, you're teaching yourself that your comfort is more valuable than your truth, that other people's feelings matter more than your own boundaries, that you can be negotiated with, pressured, dismissed. And once you've taught yourself that, you start teaching everyone else the same thing. The people who respect you most aren't the ones you've never challenged. They're the ones you've been honest with, even when it wasn't comfortable. Respect isn't built through agreeableness, it's built through clarity. And clarity requires difficult conversations. So here's how you're going to do this.
First, you're going to identify the exact conversation you need to have. Not the vague idea of it, but the specific person and the specific issue. Second, you're going to schedule it. Today. Not soon, not when the timing is right. Today. Send the text, make the call, walk into their office. Hey, do you have 15 minutes today? There's something I need to talk to you about. That's it. No long preamble, no apologies, just direct, clear communication. Third, and this is crucial, you're going to prepare for the conversation by writing down 3 things. 1. The specific behavior or situation that needs to be addressed. Not your interpretation, not your feelings about it, the observable fact. When you interrupt me during meetings, when you commit to plans and cancel last minute, when you dismiss my ideas without consideration. Facts, not judgments. 2. The impact that behavior is having on you. This is where you bring in your experience, but still with specificity. When you do that, I feel disrespected and like my contributions don't matter. When you cancel last minute, it makes me feel like my time isn't valued and it makes me question our friendship. When you dismiss my ideas, I shut down and stop contributing because I don't feel safe sharing. Impact, not blame. 3. The specific change you're requesting or the boundary you're setting. I need you to let me finish my thoughts before responding. I need you to either honor commitments or be honest up front about your capacity. I need space to evaluate whether this dynamic is sustainable for me. Clear, non-negotiable, actionable. This is called the FBI framework. Fact, impact, boundary. And it works because it removes the ambiguity that makes difficult conversations spiral into defensiveness and chaos. You're not attacking. You're not accusing. You're stating observable reality, your experience of it, and what needs to change. The other person can agree or disagree with your experience, but they can't deny the facts or your right to have boundaries. Now, here's what's going to happen during the conversation. Your heart is going to race. Your voice might shake. You might feel like you're going to cry, or like you're being too harsh, or like you should soften your words to make them more palatable. Don't. The discomfort you're feeling isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're doing something new. Your nervous system is sounding the alarm because you're violating a pattern it's been running for years. Stay small, stay safe, don't make waves. But that pattern has kept you stuck. So you're going to feel the fear and speak anyway. You're going to say what needs to be said clearly and directly without apologizing for having needs or setting boundaries. And here's the most important part. You're not responsible for how they respond. They might get defensive, they might get angry, they might shut down or try to turn it around on you. That's their choice.
Your responsibility is to speak your truth with clarity and respect. Their responsibility is how they handle that truth. If they're willing to hear you and work with you, you've just deepened the relationship and gained massive respect from them and from yourself. If they're not willing to hear you, you've just learned something critical about that relationship and whether it's serving your growth. Either way, you win, because you've proven to yourself that you can say the hard thing, that your voice matters, that you're not willing to shrink to make others comfortable. And that version of you, the one who speaks truth even when it's uncomfortable, is unstoppable. Research from the Harvard Negotiation Project shows that people who engage in direct, honest communication report significantly higher life satisfaction and stronger relationships than those who avoid conflict. Not because the conversations are easy, but because unspoken resentment is toxic. It poisons everything it touches. The conversation you're avoiding right now is poisoning something right now. Your energy, your confidence, your peace. Today, you're taking the antidote. You're having the conversation. And tomorrow, when you wake up for day 3 of the morning disruption, you're going to feel different. Lighter, clearer, more solid, because you've taken up space in the world. You've honored your truth. You've set a boundary. And that changes everything. Here's what most people don't understand about momentum. It's not just about repeating the same action. It's about compounding small acts of courage until courage becomes your default setting. Yesterday, you proved you could wake up early and honor your morning. Today, you proved you could speak truth and honor your boundaries. Tomorrow, you're going to prove something else. And with each proof, the gap between who you were and who you're becoming grows wider, until one day you look back and can't even recognize the person who was afraid to have a difficult conversation. That person feels like a stranger. And that's exactly the point. So go, schedule the conversation. Have it today. No scripts, no rehearsing it to death, just honesty, clarity, and the understanding that your voice deserves to be heard, even when it shakes, especially when it shakes. Chapter 5, Habit 3, The Body Knows First. Your body has been trying to tell you something for months, maybe years, and you've been ignoring it, not because you're oblivious, because you've been taught to override it, to push through exhaustion, to sit still when everything in you wants to move, to numb discomfort with food, alcohol, screens, anything that silences the signal. You've been living entirely in your head, trying to think your way into a better life. It's not working, because transformation doesn't happen in your thoughts. It happens in your cells, your nervous system, your gut, your muscles. Your body is the hardware that runs the software of your mind. And right now, your hardware is outdated, neglected, and barely functional. Here's what nobody tells you about personal growth. You cannot think yourself into a new identity. You have to move yourself into it. Literally. The way you hold your body determines the way you hold your life. Slouched shoulders create a slouch mindset. Shallow breathing creates shallow thinking. A sedentary body creates a stagnant mind. This isn't metaphor. This is neuroscience. Dr. Amy Cuddy's research at Harvard showed that simply changing your physical posture for 2 minutes can alter your testosterone and cortisol levels, the hormones that govern competence and stress. Your body doesn't just reflect your mental state, it creates it. So, if you want to change your mind, you have to change your body first. Welcome to Habit 3, The Body Knows First. And this one is going to hurt. Not in a destructive way, in a clarifying way, in a this is what it feels like to be alive instead of just existing way. Here's what you're going to do, starting today for the next 5 days. Every single day, you're going to move your body intentionally for 30 minutes. Not a casual walk while listening to a podcast, not stretching while scrolling your phone, not anything you can do on autopilot. 30 minutes of movement intense enough that you cannot think about anything except the movement itself. Running, lifting, boxing, dancing, swimming, rowing, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it demands your full presence. No music, no podcasts, no distractions. Just you and your body having a conversation you've been avoiding. I can already hear the objections forming. I don't have time. I'm too out of shape. I don't know what to do. I'll start next week when I can join a gym. Every single one of those is a lie. Not an exaggeration, a lie. You have time. You're going to find 30 minutes today that you would have spent scrolling or watching something you won't remember tomorrow. You're not too out of shape. That's exactly why you need to start today, not when you feel ready. You don't need to know what to do. You need to move until you sweat and your heart rate spikes. That's it. You don't need a gym. You need a floor and gravity. Push-ups, squats, burpees, planks, mountain climbers. Your body is the gym. Here's why this habit is sequenced on day 3. Days 1 and 2, you built discipline in controlled environments. Your morning routine, a single conversation. Day 3 is where most people quit. Not because they can't do it, because the newness has worn off and the resistance kicks in hard. Your nervous system is in full rebellion, trying to pull you back to comfort. So, we're going to use your body to override your mind. Because when you're 3 minutes into a sprint, gasping for air, legs burning, you cannot think about quitting the process. You can only think about the next breath, the next step. That state, where your body demands so much presence that your mind has no choice but to shut up, is where transformation happens. It's called the struggle state, and it's the most valuable psychological territory you can occupy. Not flow, not ease, struggle. Because struggle teaches you that discomfort is survivable, that you're stronger than you think, that the voice telling you to quit is a liar. Every rep you push through when your muscles are screaming is evidence that you can do hard things. And evidence is more powerful than motivation. Drop a comment. What movement are you doing today? 30 minutes. Name it. Commit to it publicly. Here's what's going to happen when you start this. The first 10 minutes will feel fine, maybe even good. Your body's warming up, endorphins are starting to kick in, you're feeling capable. Minute 12 to 22, this is hell. Your body is begging you to stop. Your mind is offering you every rational reason to cut it short. You've done enough. You'll do extra tomorrow. This is more than most people do. You don't want to injure yourself. That voice is not protecting you. It's protecting your comfort. And your comfort is the prison you're trying to escape. So, you're going to keep moving. Not faster, not harder, just consistently. One more rep, one more minute, one more breath. Minute 23 to 30. This is transcendence. You break through the wall. The pain is still there, but you've stopped negotiating with it. You've accepted it. And in that acceptance, something shifts. You realize you're capable of more than you thought, that your limits aren't where you assumed they were. That realization is what you're actually training for. The physical results, the strength, the endurance, the fat loss, the muscle gain, those are just side effects. The real result is the identity shift. You become someone who doesn't quit when it gets hard, someone who can override their impulses and honor their commitments, someone who uses discomfort as fuel instead of treating it like an emergency. And that person shows up differently in every area of life. In the difficult conversation with your boss, you don't fold under pressure because you've trained yourself to stay present in discomfort. In the morning, when your alarm goes off, you don't negotiate because you've already proven you can do things you don't feel like doing. In the moment when you want to quit your goals, you remember what 30 minutes of burpees taught you, that the voice saying, "I can't," is almost always wrong. Your body is a training ground for your mind. Every physical boundary you push teaches your brain that boundaries are negotiable. And once your brain learns that lesson, it starts applying it everywhere. Let me tell you what happened to me on day 3. I woke up exhausted. I'd done the morning disruption for 2 days. I'd had the difficult conversation I'd been avoiding for weeks with my business partner about how I felt sidelined in decisions that affected both of us. It went better than I expected, but it also drained me. Emotional honesty is expensive. And when it came time to do the 30-minute movement, every fiber of my being wanted to skip it. I told myself I'd already done enough, that I was tired from waking up early, that I'd earned a rest day. But I'd made this commitment, not to some abstract goal, but to myself. So I laced up my shoes and went for a run. The first mile was misery. My legs felt like concrete, my lungs were burning, my mind was screaming at me to stop. Mile 2, something cracked. I stopped trying to outrun the discomfort and just ran inside it. Stopped resisting the burn and started breathing into it. And by mile 3, I wasn't running to finish anymore. I was running because I'd remembered something I'd forgotten. I was strong. Not because I was fast or because I had perfect form, but because I'd chosen to do the hard thing when everything in me wanted the easy thing. That run didn't fix my life, but it reminded me that I was capable of fixing my life. And that reminder was everything. If this is landing, if something in you is waking up, hit subscribe. Seriously. You know what's crazy? 85% of the people experiencing this transformation right now won't. They'll listen, feel moved, and disappear. Don't be one of them. Subscribing tells me this matters, and it's how I know to keep building these experiences for you. Here's the science behind why movement works when willpower fails. When you exercise, especially at high intensity, your body releases a cascade of neurochemicals: dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF is basically Miracle-Gro for your brain. It promotes the growth of new neural connections, which means every time you move your body intensely, you're literally building new pathways in your brain. New pathways mean new possibilities, new ways of thinking, new responses to old triggers. But here's the part most people miss. Those neurochemical benefits don't just improve your mood in the moment, they compound. A study published in the Journal of Neuroscience found that regular intense exercise increases baseline dopamine receptor density, which means you become more sensitive to reward and motivation over time. Translation: the more you move, the easier it becomes to feel motivated naturally without needing external stimulation. You're not just building muscle, you're rebuilding your brain's reward system. And once that system is recalibrated, everything that used to require massive willpower starts requiring less effort. Waking up early becomes natural. Avoiding junk food becomes automatic. Doing the hard work becomes your default, because your body has taught your brain what discipline feels like. Now, let's talk about what happens when you skip this habit. You'll rationalize it perfectly. You'll tell yourself you're too sore from yesterday's movement, that you need to prioritize rest, that you'll double up tomorrow. And maybe that's even true. Maybe you do need rest. But here's the question. Is your body actually asking for rest, or is your mind asking for comfort? There's a massive difference. Rest is intentional recovery that serves your growth. Comfort is avoidance disguised as self-care. And the way you know the difference is simple. Rest feels restorative. Comfort feels like relief from responsibility. If skipping your 30-minute movement makes you feel lighter and more energized, that's rest. If it makes you feel guilty and diminished, that's comfort. And comfort in small doses is fine, but comfort as a lifestyle is a slow death. So here's the rule for the next 5 days. You don't skip the movement unless you're physically injured. Tired? Move anyway. Sore? Move anyway. Busy? Move anyway. Don't feel like it? Especially move anyway. Because the days you least want to do it are the days it matters most. Those are the days you're training the part of you that will determine whether you're still doing this in 6 months, a year, 5 years. Motivation gets you started. Momentum keeps you going. But identity makes it permanent. And identity is forged in the moments when you act like the person you're becoming, even when you don't feel like that person yet. 30 minutes. Today and every day for the next 5 days. No headphones, no distractions. Just you, your body, and the truth of what you're capable of when you stop negotiating. You're going to sweat. You're going to struggle. You're going to want to quit. And you're going to keep moving. Because every minute you push through is a vote for the person you're becoming. And by day 7, when you look back, you won't just see someone who worked out for a week. You'll see someone who kept a promise to themselves when it was hard. And that person is capable of anything. Chapter 6. When silence becomes your enemy. There's a version of silence that heals. The intentional kind. The kind you experience in your morning disruption. 10 minutes of sitting with yourself, reclaiming your attention, teaching your nervous system that you don't need constant stimulation to feel okay. That silence is medicine. But there's another kind of silence. The kind you're using right now to avoid something you need to say. The kind that festers in your relationships, your career, your self-perception. That silence is poison, and it's killing you slowly, invisibly, one unsaid truth at a time. You know what I'm talking about. The thing you keep thinking but not saying, the boundary you need to set but haven't, the compliment you want to give but swallow, the apology you owe but refuse to deliver, the dream you have but won't voice because voicing it makes it real, and real things can fail. Every time you choose silence when truth is required, you're choosing comfort over integrity. And that choice has a cost. It costs you respect from others and, more importantly, from yourself. It costs you energy because unexpressed truth takes up psychic space, cluttering your mental bandwidth. It costs you connection because intimacy can only exist where honesty does. We're on day 4 now. You've done the morning disruption 3 times, you've had the difficult conversation, you've moved your body through resistance. You're building momentum, but momentum without direction is just chaos. And the direction you need is toward radical honesty. First with yourself, then with the world. So today we're going deeper into the skill you started building on day 2, the willingness to speak when silence feels safer. Here's a pattern I see in almost everyone who's stuck. They're fluent in silence and terrified of truth. They'll nod along in meetings when they disagree. They'll say, "I'm fine," when they're falling apart. They'll laugh at jokes that aren't funny. They'll perform enthusiasm they don't feel. They'll stay in relationships that drain them because ending it would require a conversation that feels impossible. They've learned to manage other people's comfort at the expense of their own authenticity. And they wonder why they feel invisible. You can't be seen if you refuse to be honest. You can't be known if you only show the version of yourself you think people can handle. And you can't transform if you're still pretending everything is fine. So here's what we're doing today. And this is going to feel more invasive than the conversation on day 2 because this time we're going internal. Today you're going to write down 3 truths you've been avoiding. Not thoughts, not observations. Truths. Truths are the things you know with absolute certainty, but haven't fully acknowledged because acknowledging them would require action. Here's the format. Truth 1. A truth about yourself that you've been denying. Maybe it's that you're not happy in your career even though you've invested years into it. Maybe it's that you've been using busyness to avoid intimacy. Maybe it's that you're scared of success because it would mean you have no more excuses. Whatever it is, write it down without softening it. Not, "I think maybe I'm not fully satisfied with my job." "I hate my job and I've been staying because I'm afraid I'm not good enough to do what I actually want." Unfiltered, uncomfortable, true. Truth 2. A truth about a relationship that you've been avoiding. Maybe it's that a friendship has run its course and you're only maintaining it out of guilt. Maybe it's that you're carrying resentment toward your partner for something you've never named. Maybe it's that you've been seeking validation from someone who will never give it to you. Write it down, exactly as it is. Truth 3. A truth about what you actually want that you've been too afraid to admit. This is the dangerous one, because wanting something and saying it out loud makes you vulnerable. If you fail, you can't pretend you never cared. But silence about your desires doesn't protect you. It just guarantees you'll never pursue them. So write it down, the thing you want but haven't let yourself fully want, because wanting feels like exposure. I want to start my own business. I want to be a writer. I want to leave this city. I want to repair my relationship with my father. I want to be alone for a while and figure out who I am without someone else defining me. Whatever it is, name it. Hey, pause here. Drop a comment. Just one word. One truth. You don't have to explain it. Just acknowledge it. Make it real. Here's what happens when you finally speak the truth you've been silencing. Initially, panic. Your nervous system interprets honesty as danger because honesty disrupts the carefully constructed image you've been maintaining, the version of you that has it all together, that doesn't need anything, that's fine with everything. That version was a performance, and performances are exhausting. But after the panic, something else emerges. Relief. Deep cellular relief, because the truth, even when it's painful, even when it's terrifying, is lighter than the lie. Lies require constant maintenance. You have to remember what you said, who you said it to, what version of the story you're selling. You have to monitor yourself constantly to make sure the mask doesn't slip. Truth requires nothing but presence. You say what's real, you live what's real, and suddenly all that energy you were spending on impression management becomes available for actually building the life you want. But here's where most people stall out. They acknowledge the truth privately, maybe even write it down like you just did, and then they stop. They think naming it is enough. It's not. Awareness without action is just sophisticated procrastination.
So here's the second part of today's habit. You're going to take one of those 3 truths and act on it today. Not all 3, that's overwhelming and you'll freeze. 1. The one that scares you most but feels most urgent. And the action doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be real. If the truth is, I hate my job, the action might be updating your resume or reaching out to someone in a field you're curious about. If the truth is, this friendship has run its course, the action might be sending a message. Hey, I've been reflecting on our dynamic and I think we need to talk. If the truth is, I want to write, the action might be sitting down and writing 500 words. Not good words, not publishable words, just words. Proof that the desire is more than fantasy. One truth, one action, today. Because action is the antidote to the paralysis that silence creates. And once you move even slightly, the truth stops being terrifying and starts being liberating. Here's what I need you to understand. The silence you're maintaining isn't neutral. It's not keeping the peace. It's creating a pressure system that's building toward an explosion. Every unsaid truth, every swallowed frustration, every unexpressed need, they don't disappear. They accumulate. And eventually they erupt. Maybe as a breakdown, maybe as resentment that poisons a relationship, maybe as a decision made in desperation instead of clarity. Or maybe they don't erupt at all. Maybe they just calcify into bitterness, into resignation, into the quiet death of becoming someone you don't recognize. The people who transform aren't the ones who avoid difficult truths. They're the ones who run toward them. They're the ones who say, this is uncomfortable, and I'm going to say it anyway. They're the ones who understand that short-term discomfort is the price of long-term integrity. And integrity, not perfection, not likability, but integrity is the foundation of a life you actually want to live. Day 4 is the inflection point. You're far enough into the process that the initial excitement has faded, but not far enough that the new habits feel automatic. This is where discipline gets tested. This is where you find out if you're serious or if you were just dabbling. And the way you prove you're serious is by doing the thing that terrifies you.
You speak the truth you've been avoiding. You take the action you've been delaying. You stop waiting for permission and you give it to yourself. Because nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to hand you the life you want. Nobody is going to speak your truth for you. You have to do it. And today is the day you start. 3 truths, 1 action. That's it. By tonight, you'll have done something you've been avoiding for weeks, maybe months. And tomorrow morning, when you wake up for day 5, you're going to feel different. Not because the situation is resolved, it might not be, but because you've proven to yourself that you're capable of being honest even when it's hard. And that capability changes everything. Silence isn't always golden. Sometimes it's just cowardice dressed up as wisdom. Today, you choose courage.
Chapter 7, Habit 4, The 30-Minute Revolution. You are what you consume. Not metaphorically, literally. Every podcast you listen to, every video you watch, every conversation you have, every article you scroll past, every song you play on repeat, it's all programming your subconscious. Your brain doesn't distinguish between information you intentionally seek and information you passively absorb. It all gets processed, cataloged, and integrated into your worldview, your beliefs, your sense of what's possible. And right now, if you're honest about what you've been consuming, you're programming yourself for mediocrity. Maybe not intentionally, but default consumption is designed to keep you distracted, not transformed. Social media algorithms don't optimize for your growth. They optimize for your engagement. News outlets don't prioritize your peace, they prioritize your attention. Entertainment platforms don't care about your potential, they care about your screen time. And while you've been consuming mindlessly, you've been building a mind that can't focus, can't create, can't think deeply about anything that matters. Welcome to day 5. You've established your morning. You've spoken difficult truths. You've moved your body through resistance. Now, we're going to rewire your input system. Habit 4, the 30-minute revolution. Here's the habit, and it's deceptively simple. For the next 3 days, today, tomorrow, and day 7, you're going to spend 30 minutes consuming something that directly builds the life you want to live. Not entertainment, not distraction, not content that makes you feel informed but changes nothing. Content that teaches you a skill, expands your perspective, or challenges your current limitations. A book about the field you want to enter. A course on the skill you need to develop. A documentary about someone who's done what you're trying to do. A podcast with an expert in an area you're weak in. 30 minutes of intentional, focused learning. No multitasking. No scrolling while you listen. No background consumption while you do something else. Full presence, full absorption, full commitment to becoming someone who knows more today than they did yesterday. I can already feel the resistance. I don't have 30 minutes. I'm already overwhelmed with information. I'll do this once I have more time. Stop. You have the time. You spent more than 30 minutes yesterday on content that did nothing for your growth. You know you did. The average person spends over 2 hours per day on social media. 2 hours watching other people live their lives while yours stays exactly the same. We're taking 30 minutes of that back, and we're weaponizing it. Drop a comment right now. What are you going to consume for 30 minutes today? Name it. Book, course, documentary, podcast. Make it specific. Make it real. Here's why this habit is sequenced on day 5. By now, you've built enough discipline that you can direct your attention intentionally. The morning disruption taught you that you can control your internal state. The difficult conversations taught you that you can navigate external challenges. The movement taught you that you can override discomfort. Now, we're teaching you that you can curate your mind. Because your mind is the most valuable real estate you own. And you've been letting anyone with an algorithm squat there rent-free. Every notification, every autoplay video, every gossip conversation,
every doom scroll session. That's someone else deciding what lives in your head. And what lives in your head determines what shows up in your life. You want different results? Start with different inputs. Here's the neuroscience. Your brain operates through a process called neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural connections based on repeated stimuli. Every time you consume something, you're either strengthening existing neural pathways or building new ones. If you spend 30 minutes a day learning about business, you're building business neural pathways. If you spend 30 minutes a day scrolling drama, you're building drama neural pathways. Your brain doesn't judge the content. It just wires itself for more of what you feed it. Dr. Michael Merzenchik, a pioneer in neuroplasticity research, found that focused attention on new information creates the strongest neural changes. But the key word is focused. Passive consumption, listening while doing dishes, watching while scrolling, doesn't create meaningful change because your attention is divided.
You're not actually learning, you're just exposing yourself to information that will evaporate the moment you encounter the next stimulus. Real learning requires immersion. So here's a structure for your 30 minutes. Minutes 1 through 5, preparation. Eliminate all distractions. Phone on airplane mode, computer tabs closed, door closed if you're not alone. Grab a notebook, not your phone's note app, a physical notebook. You're going to actively engage with what you're consuming, not just passively receive it. Minutes 6 through 25, consumption. Read, watch, or listen with complete focus. Every time your mind wanders, and it will constantly because you've trained it to need constant stimulation, bring it back. This isn't easy. Your brain will fight you. It'll tell you this is boring, that you should check your phone, that you can do this later. That's the addiction to distraction trying to maintain control. Keep your attention on the content. Minutes 26 through 30, integration. This is the most important part, and it's the part most people skip. You're going to write down 3 things. 1, the most important idea you just consumed, in your own words, not a quote. Translation forces comprehension. 2, how that idea applies to your current situation. Make it specific. This applies to my business because, or this changes how I think about my relationship because. 3, one action you'll take in the next 24 hours based on this idea. Not someday, not when you feel ready, tomorrow. This is how you turn consumption into transformation. Most people consume endlessly and change nothing because they never integrate. They collect information like it's going to magically reorganize their life. It won't. Information without application is just entertainment. So you're going to consume less and integrate more. 30 minutes, 1 piece of content, 3 takeaways, 1 action. That's the revolution. Because in 3 days of doing this, you'll have learned more applicable knowledge than most people learn in a month of passive scrolling. And in 30 days, if you continue this beyond the 7-day framework, you'll be unrecognizable. Not because you'll know everything, but because you'll know the things that matter for the life you're building, and you'll be acting on them. Here's what happened to me when I implemented this habit. I was drowning in content, subscribed to dozens of podcasts, hundreds of YouTube channels, constantly adding books to my reading list that I never actually read. I felt informed, but I wasn't changing. I knew all the productivity hacks, but my productivity was garbage. I'd listened to hours of content about discipline, but I had none. I could quote self-help authors, but I couldn't implement their advice. Because I was consuming for the feeling of progress, not for actual progress. So I stripped it down. 30 minutes, 1 source, full focus, immediate integration. The first day, I read 30 pages of a book on systems thinking, took notes, identified 1 concept. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. I applied it immediately. My goal was to write every day, but my system was terrible. No set time, no dedicated space, constant interruptions. So I changed the system.
Wrote every morning at 6 a.m., same chair, phone in another room. That one insight, integrated immediately, transformed my writing output. Not because the information was revolutionary, because I actually used it. That's the difference between consumers and creators. Consumers collect, creators apply. And you're becoming a creator. Now let's talk about what you're going to stop consuming. For these next 3 days, you're going on a media fast from anything that doesn't serve your transformation. No social media scrolling. If you need to post something for work, fine, but no browsing, no reels, no TikTok, no falling into the algorithm. No news. You don't need to know every crisis happening in real time. If something is truly important, you'll hear about it. No gossip. Conversations that dissect other people's drama are mental junk food. They feel satisfying in the moment and leave you empty after. No mindless entertainment. I'm not saying never watch TV again, but for these 3 days, if you're going to watch something, make it intentional. A documentary that teaches you something, a film that challenges your perspective. Everything you consume either builds you or diminishes you. There's no neutral.
For 3 days, you're only consuming what builds you. This is going to create withdrawal symptoms. You're going to feel bored. You're going to reach for your phone 20 times a day out of pure habit. You're going to feel like you're missing something. You're not. You're missing distraction. And distraction has been robbing you of your life. The boredom you're feeling isn't the problem. It's the space where creativity lives. Every great idea, every meaningful insight, every transformative decision happens in the gap between stimuli. But you've been filling that gap with noise for so long that you've forgotten what silence sounds like. These 3 days are going to remind you. And in that reminder, something's going to emerge. Clarity about what you actually want. Ideas you've been too distracted to notice. Solutions to problems you thought were unsolvable. Not because you consumed the perfect content, because you stopped consuming the garbage that was cluttering your mental bandwidth. If this habit is already making you uncomfortable, if you're realizing how much junk you've been feeding your mind, hit subscribe right now. Because 85% of people won't. They'll hear this, nod along, and go right back to scrolling. Don't be that person. Subscribing means you're serious about this transformation. It means you want more of this. And it tells me to keep creating it. Here's the truth about information in the modern world. You have access to more knowledge than any human in history. You can learn anything from anyone at any time. And most people use that access to watch cat videos and argue with strangers. The gap between who you are and who you could be isn't about access to information. It's about the quality of what you're choosing to consume and whether you're actually integrating it. You could read every book on discipline and stay undisciplined. You could watch every video on confidence and stay insecure. You could listen to every podcast on success and stay stuck. Or you could consume one thing deeply and intentionally, integrate it immediately, and change everything. That's the choice you're making today. 30 minutes, one source, 3 takeaways, 1 action. Not tomorrow, not when you finish this audiobook, today. Right now, in fact. Pause this. Go consume something that builds the life you want. Notebook in hand, full focus. And when you come back, you'll be different. Not because you know more, because you've proven to yourself that you can direct your attention intentionally and use information as fuel instead of letting it use you as a consumer. That's power. And by day 7, you're going to have so much of it that people will start asking what changed. And you'll smile because you'll know something they don't. Everything changed the moment you stopped consuming your life and started creating it. I have this enormous chunk of time I didn't know what to do with. Hours that I'd been pouring into a platform that gave me nothing back. So I wrote. Not because I felt inspired, because I had nothing else to distract me from the fact that writing was what I actually wanted to be doing. And in those 2 days, I wrote more than I had in the previous 2 weeks. Not better writing,
but more honest writing. Because I wasn't performing for an algorithm, I was creating for myself. That's what happens when you eliminate the drain. The energy doesn't disappear, it redirects into the projects you've been avoiding, into the relationships you've been neglecting, into the version of yourself you've been too distracted to become. Now let's talk about what you're going to replace the drain with. Because eliminating consumption without replacing it with creation just leaves you empty. Here's the rule. For every hour you would have spent on the energy drain, you're going to spend 30 minutes on intentional creation. Writing, building, drawing, coding, planning, designing, anything that leaves something behind when you're done. Not consumption disguised as creation, researching or learning without applying. Actual creation. Something that didn't exist before you sat down. It doesn't have to be good, it doesn't have to be finished, it doesn't even have to be seen by another human. It just has to be real. Because creation is the antidote to consumption. Consumption makes you feel empty because you're always receiving, never giving. Creation makes you feel full because you're contributing. You're adding something to the world instead of just taking. And that shift from consumer to creator is the shift that changes everything. By the end of day 7 tomorrow, you'll have gone 2 full days without your biggest energy drain. You'll have spent hours creating instead of consuming. And you'll realize something. You don't actually miss it. You thought it was adding to your life. It was subtracting. And now that it's gone, you have room for what actually matters. Your energy is finite. Your attention is finite. Your time is finite. And every second you spend consuming content that diminishes you is a second you're stealing from the life you actually want to build. Today, you stop stealing from yourself. Today, you reclaim your energy. And tomorrow, on day 7, you're going to wake up as someone completely different from the person who started this journey. Not because you've perfected all the habits, but because you've proven to yourself that you can change. That you can wake up early even when you're tired. That you can have difficult conversations even when you're scared. That you can move your body even when it hurts. That you can curate your mind even when distraction feels easier. That you can create even when consumption feels safer. You've proven that you're not stuck. You're just someone who's been choosing comfort over growth. And now you're choosing differently. One more day. And then the real work begins.
Chapter 8. What you consume consumes you. There's a reason you feel exhausted even though you didn't do anything physically demanding today. Mental consumption is as draining as physical exertion, sometimes more so. Every piece of content you consume costs you something. Attention, energy, emotional bandwidth. And unlike physical energy that you can replenish with rest, mental energy depletes when you feed it garbage. You've been running a deficit for months, maybe years, consuming more than you create, taking in more than you process, absorbing more than you integrate. And now your system is overloaded. You can feel it, can't you? The brain fog that hits you mid-afternoon. The inability to focus on anything for more than a few minutes. The sense that you're always busy but never productive. The weird emptiness after hours of scrolling. That's not laziness. That's not a character flaw. That's information overload masquerading as engagement. And it's destroying your ability to think clearly, act decisively, and create meaningfully. We're on day 6 now. You're deeper into this transformation than most people ever get. The morning disruption is becoming routine. The difficult conversations are getting easier. Your body is remembering what it feels like to move with purpose. And yesterday, you started curating what enters your mind. Today,
We're going even deeper. Because it's not enough to consume better content for 30 minutes if you're spending the other 15 and a half hours poisoning yourself with mental junk food. So today's work isn't about adding something. It's about subtracting. You're going to identify the 3 biggest energy drains in your consumption habits and eliminate them completely, starting today. Not reduce, not moderate, eliminate. Here's how you identify them. Think about the last week. What content, apps, people, shows, websites, social platforms left you feeling worse after consuming it? Not challenged, not uncomfortable in a growth way, worse. Anxious, inadequate, angry, scattered, numb. That's poison. And you've been voluntarily ingesting it because it's habit, or because everyone does it, or because you're afraid of missing out. But here's what you're actually missing out on: your life. Every minute you spend consuming content that diminishes you is a minute you're not spending building something that matters. So here are the 3 most common energy drains, and I bet everything you're dealing with at least one of them. Energy drain 1. Comparison platforms. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Any platform where you're primarily consuming highlights of other people's lives while your own feels like a blooper reel. You tell yourself you're just staying connected or getting inspiration, but what you're actually doing is training your brain to measure your worth against curated fiction. And you're losing every single time. Because you're comparing your internal reality, messy, uncertain, full of doubt, to someone else's external performance. That's not inspiration. That's self-sabotage. Energy drain 2. Outrage content. News, political commentary, hot takes. Anything designed to make you angry, afraid, or morally superior. You think you're staying informed. You're not. You're feeding your nervous system a steady stream of cortisol and adrenaline, which keeps you in a state of low-grade stress that feels like alertness, but is actually just exhaustion. And the kicker? None of it changes anything. You're not more equipped to solve problems after consuming outrage. You're just more agitated. Energy drain 3. Passive entertainment. This one's subtle because it doesn't feel harmful. It's just TV, just YouTube, just unwinding. But unwinding has become code for numbing.
You're not resting. You're avoiding. Avoiding the hard conversation you need to have. Avoiding the project you need to start. Avoiding the silence where you'd have to confront what you're actually feeling. And when you finally turn off the show, the issue is still there, now compounded by guilt for wasting time. Here's your assignment. Pick the one energy drain that's consuming the most of your time and attention. And for the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, day 7, you're going to completely abstain from it. Delete the app, block the website, cancel the subscription, whatever it takes. Drop a comment. What's your biggest energy drain? Name it, because you can't eliminate what you won't acknowledge. Now let's talk about what happens when you create space. The first thing you'll notice is discomfort. You'll reach for the app that's no longer there. You'll feel the urge to fill the silence with something, anything. That urge is not boredom. It's withdrawal. You've been using consumption to regulate your nervous system, to avoid presence, to escape the discomfort of being alone with your thoughts. And now you can't. This is where most people fail. The discomfort spikes and they reinstall the app, turn on the TV, find a new distraction. They tell themselves they'll try again later when they're stronger. But you don't get stronger by avoiding discomfort. You get stronger by sitting in it. So when the urge hits, and it will, constantly, here's what you do. Pause. Take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, what am I actually avoiding right now? Not what do I need to distract myself from? What am I avoiding? Maybe it's the anxiety about your financial situation.
Maybe it's the loneliness you've been numbing. Maybe it's the fear that if you stop consuming, you'll have to start creating. And creating means risking failure. Name it, and then sit with it for 5 minutes. Not forever, not until it's resolved, just 5 minutes of feeling what you've been avoiding feeling. You know what you'll discover? It's survivable. The discomfort you've been running from your entire life is just discomfort. It's not an emergency. It's not going to destroy you. And once you realize that, its power over you evaporates. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that people who practice urge surfing, sitting with cravings without acting on them, develop significantly stronger impulse control over time. You're not trying to eliminate the urge. You're learning to tolerate it. And tolerance builds capacity. The more you can sit with discomfort without needing to escape it, the more life you can handle. Difficult conversations become manageable. Uncertainty becomes navigable. Failure becomes feedback instead of identity. You become unshakable. Here's what happened to me when I eliminated my biggest energy drain. I was addicted to Twitter, not casually checking it. Addicted. I'd reach for my phone dozens of times a day, scrolling through outrage, hot takes, arguments with strangers I'd never meet. I told myself I was staying informed, staying connected. But the truth was, I was avoiding writing. Because writing required vulnerability. It required putting something into the world that could be criticized, ignored, or rejected. Scrolling was safe, passive. It gave me the illusion of productivity without the risk of creation. So I deleted the app. The first day was hell. I reached for my phone constantly. My brain was screaming for the dopamine hit. But I sat with it, felt the urge, didn't act on it. And on day 2, something shifted.
Chapter 9, Habit 5, The Gratitude Inversion. Gratitude has become a cliche. Everyone talks about it. Influencers preach it. Self-help books devote entire chapters to it. You've probably heard 1,000 times that you should practice gratitude and be more thankful. And you've probably tried it. Maybe you started a gratitude journal, listed 3 things you're grateful for each morning. I'm grateful for my health, my family, my home. And after a few days, maybe a week, it stopped working. Not because gratitude doesn't work, but because you were practicing gratitude wrong. You were treating it like a passive acknowledgement instead of an active weapon. Here's what nobody tells you about gratitude. It's not about feeling warm and fuzzy about what you already have. It's about rewiring your perception so radically that scarcity becomes impossible. Real gratitude, the kind that transforms your life, isn't a practice, it's an inversion. Welcome to day 7, the final day of the initial transformation. You've built the morning disruption. You've spoken difficult truths. You've moved through resistance. You've curated your consumption. You've reclaimed your energy. Now we're installing the final habit, the one that makes everything else sustainable. Habit 5, the gratitude inversion. Here's what you're going to do, starting today and continuing beyond this week into your new operating system. Every night before bed, you're going to write down 3 things, but not the things you're grateful for. That's the old way, and it's weak. You're going to write down 3 struggles, 3 difficulties, 3 things that went wrong today. And then you're going to identify the hidden gift inside each one. This is the inversion. You're not ignoring the hard parts of life. You're not toxic positivitying your way through pain. You're training your brain to hunt for value in every experience, especially the ones that hurt. Here's the format you're going to use. The struggle. Describe what went wrong today. Specifically, I missed my morning alarm and felt behind all day. I had an argument with my partner. I made a mistake at work that cost the team time. The gift. What did this struggle teach you, reveal to you, or make possible? Missing my alarm showed me I'm not getting enough sleep and I need to adjust my bedtime. The argument forced a conversation we've been avoiding for weeks. The mistake taught me a gap in my process that I can now fix before it becomes a bigger problem. The action. What will you do differently because of this?
I'm setting a bedtime alarm in addition to my morning alarm. We're scheduling a weekly check-in to talk before resentment builds. I'm creating a checklist for this type of task so I don't miss steps. 3 struggles, 3 gifts, 3 actions. Every single night. This is going to feel unnatural at first. Your brain is wired to see problems as threats, not teachers. But problems are only threats when you're powerless. When you can extract value from them, they become fuel. Hey, drop a comment. What's one struggle from today that you haven't found the gift in yet? Name it, because naming it is the first step to transforming it. Here's the neuroscience behind why this works. Your brain has a built-in negativity bias, an evolutionary mechanism that prioritizes threats over rewards to keep you alive. You remember the one criticism more than the 10 compliments. You fixate on what went wrong more than what went right. This bias was useful when threats were physical, predators, starvation, rival tribes. But in the modern world where most threats are psychological, this bias makes you miserable. You ruminate on failures, you catastrophize setbacks, you scan for problems constantly, which means you find them constantly. The gratitude aversion doesn't fight this bias, it uses it. You're still focusing on what went wrong, but instead of stopping at the threat, you're training your brain to complete the circuit. Threat, to lesson, to action. This creates what psychologists call post-traumatic growth, the documented phenomenon where people emerge from adversity stronger than they were before it. Most people experience adversity and get stuck in the threat response. They replay the problem, feel victimized by it, and carry it forward as evidence that life is hard and they're unlucky. You're not going to do that. You're going to mine every difficulty for the gold hidden inside it. And over time, your brain will start doing this automatically. A rejection won't feel like failure. It'll feel like redirection. A setback won't feel like catastrophe. It'll feel like information. A conflict won't feel like a threat. It'll feel like an opportunity for clarity. You'll become anti-fragile. Not just resilient, but someone who actually gets stronger from stress. And once you reach that state, nothing can stop you because you'll have transformed the one thing that stops most people, the fear of things going wrong. Here's what this looked like for me. I used to keep a traditional gratitude journal. I'm grateful for coffee. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my friends. And it did nothing. Not because those things weren't valuable, but because listing them didn't change how I processed difficulty.
The moment something went wrong, a client canceled, a project failed, a relationship hit turbulence, I'd spiral. I'd catastrophize. I'd see it as evidence that I was failing. The gratitude journal didn't help because it lived in a different part of my brain than the problem-solving part. So I flipped it. I started ending each day by writing down what went wrong and forcing myself to find the value. Day 1. Client canceled the contract. Gift? I now have time to pursue the project I've been putting off. Action? I'm blocking tomorrow morning to start it. Day 2. Got into an argument with my partner about finances. Gift? We finally admitted we've been avoiding this conversation for months. Action? We're sitting down this weekend to build a budget together. Day 3. Feel completely unmotivated and wasted 3 hours scrolling. Gift? This is a pattern that shows up when I'm avoiding something hard. Action? I'm identifying what I'm avoiding and doing it first tomorrow. Within 2 weeks, my entire relationship with difficulty changed. I stopped seeing problems as proof that I was failing and started seeing them as proof that I was living, actually engaging with life instead of hiding from it. And that shift made me unstoppable. Not because problems stopped appearing, but because I stopped being afraid of them. Now, let's talk about what happens when you don't do this habit. You'll keep experiencing struggles, that's guaranteed because life is hard and uncertain and full of variables you can't control. But without the gratitude inversion, those struggles will accumulate into a narrative. Nothing works for me. I can't catch a break. Life is just hard. That narrative will become your identity. And once it's your identity, you'll unconsciously create more evidence for it. You'll miss opportunities because you're expecting them to fail. You'll avoid risk because you're convinced it won't work out. You'll quit before you've even started because what's the point? The gratitude inversion destroys that narrative. It replaces life is happening to me with life is happening for me. Not in a spiritual woo-woo way, though if that works for you, great. In a practical, evidence-based way. Because when you extract value from every experience becomes valuable. There's no such thing as wasted time, only time you haven't learned from yet. There's no such thing as failure, only feedback you haven't integrated yet. There's no such thing as a setback, only a setup you haven't recognized yet. This isn't denial, this is mastery. You're not pretending problems don't exist, you're refusing to let them define you. Here's your assignment for tonight and every night going forward. Before you go to sleep, pull out your notebook. Write down 3 struggles from today. Real ones, not manufactured gratitude disguised as struggle. Then find the gift. Then identify the action. And here's the crucial part. You do this even on good days. Especially on good days. Because good days create complacency. You stop paying attention. You stop growing. The gratitude inversion keeps you sharp even when life is easy. It trains you to see everything, success and failure, ease and difficulty, joy and pain, as information. And information is power. By the end of day 7, tonight, you'll have completed 1 full week of transformation. You'll have disrupted your mornings, spoken your truths, moved your body, curated your mind, reclaimed your energy, and inverted your perception. You're not the same person who started this. That person was waiting for permission, waiting to feel ready, waiting for conditions to be perfect. You stopped waiting, and in 7 days, you've built proof that you're capable of more than you thought. But here is the hard truth. 7 days is just the beginning. This isn't a challenge you complete and then return to normal. This is the foundation of a new normal. And tomorrow, day 8, is when the real test begins. Because motivation got you started, momentum carried you through, but identity is what keeps you going. Tonight, when you write down your 3 struggles and find the gifts, you're not just processing your day. You're installing a new operating system. One that doesn't see obstacles as reasons to quit. One that doesn't need perfect conditions to act. One that doesn't wait for life to get easier before getting better. You're becoming someone who transforms everything they touch, starting with themselves. And once you've transformed yourself, everything else becomes possible. Welcome to day 7. This is where you prove that everything you've built this week isn't a fluke. It's who you are now. Chapter 10. The Uncomfortable Truth About Joy. Here's something nobody wants to hear. You don't actually want to be happy all the time. You think you do. You say you do. You might even believe you do. But what you actually want is to feel alive. And feeling alive requires the full spectrum: joy and pain, success and failure, connection and loneliness. Happiness, the way most people pursue it, is just emotional numbness marketed as peace. You've been taught that the goal is to eliminate discomfort, to optimize your way into a life where nothing hurts and everything feels good. But that's not a life. That's sedation. And deep down, you know it. That's why the moments you remember most vividly aren't the comfortable ones. They're the moments when you risked something, when you pushed beyond what you thought possible, when you felt terrified and did it anyway. Those moments weren't happy. They were alive. And alive is what you've been craving all along. We're still on day 7, and we need to talk about what happens next.
Because here's the trap most people fall into after a week of transformation. They expect to feel different permanently. They expect the morning disruption to always feel powerful, the difficult conversations to always feel liberating, the movement to always feel energizing, the curated consumption to always feel fulfilling, the gratitude inversion to always reveal profound insights. And when it doesn't, when day 8 feels mundane, when the habits feel like obligations instead of revelations, they assume it's not working anymore. So they quit. They tell themselves they gave it a shot. It was good while it lasted, but it's not sustainable. That's a lie. What's actually happening is this. You're transitioning from the novelty phase to the integration phase. The novelty phase is seductive. Everything's new. You're seeing immediate results. You feel like you've unlocked a secret. But novelty fades. It always does. And when it does, you're left with the reality of transformation. It's not a peak experience. It's a practice. Most people can't handle that. They need the emotional high to stay engaged. You're not going to be most people. You're going to understand that the habits working doesn't mean they feel amazing every single day. It means they're rewiring your baseline, which is invisible in the moment, but undeniable over time. Let me tell you what day 8 looked like for me. I woke up, did the morning disruption. It felt fine. Not transcendent, not life-changing, just fine. I moved my body. It was hard like it always is, but there was no breakthrough moment. I curated my consumption, learned something useful, wrote it down, moved on. I did the gratitude inversion at night, found the gifts in the day's struggles, went to sleep, and I felt nothing special. No fireworks, no profound realizations, no sense of being a completely new person. Just the quiet satisfaction of having kept my promises to myself. And that quiet satisfaction, that's the real transformation. Because the person I used to be wouldn't have done the habits without the emotional payoff. I needed to feel inspired, motivated, rewarded. But the person I was becoming didn't need that anymore. I did the habits because they were part of my identity now. Not because they made me feel good, but because not doing them would make me feel like I was betraying myself. That's the shift. From I'll do this when I feel like it to I do this because this is who I am. Take a second. Drop a comment. How do you feel right now? Honestly. Inspired? Tired? Uncertain? Say it. Because the truth is always more useful than the performance. Here's the uncomfortable truth about joy. It's not something you pursue, it's something that emerges when you stop avoiding pain. Most people spend their entire lives constructing elaborate systems to avoid discomfort. They numb with food, distraction, substances, busyness, relationships, achievements, anything to avoid sitting with the raw, unfiltered experience of being human. And in avoiding pain, they also avoid joy, because you can't selectively numb. When you close yourself off to one part of the emotional spectrum, you close yourself off to all of it. The same mechanism that protects you from feeling grief also prevents you from feeling gratitude. The same armor that shields you from rejection also blocks you from connection. The same avoidance that keeps you from facing failure also keeps you from pursuing what you actually want.
You can't have joy without vulnerability. And vulnerability means being willing to feel everything. That's what this week has been training you for. Not to feel good all the time, but to be present for all of it. The discomfort, the resistance, the fear, the doubt, and act anyway.
The morning disruption taught you to sit with yourself in silence, which is uncomfortable when you're used to constant stimulation. The difficult conversations taught you to sit with conflict, which is uncomfortable when you're used to people-pleasing. The movement taught you to sit with physical pain, which is uncomfortable when you're used to comfort. The consumption curation taught you to sit with boredom, which is uncomfortable when you're addicted to distraction. The gratitude inversion taught you to sit with struggle, which is uncomfortable when you're conditioned to see it as failure. All of it was training in one thing: presence. The ability to be here, fully, without needing to escape. And presence is where joy lives. Not the manufactured happiness of everything's perfect, the deep, unshakable joy of I'm alive, I'm showing up, I'm becoming who I'm meant to be. That joy doesn't depend on circumstances. It doesn't require everything to go right. It just requires you to be real. To stop performing, stop pretending, stop curating a version of yourself that you think the world can handle, and start living as the person you actually are. Flawed, uncertain, afraid sometimes, struggling often, but present, honest, committed. That person is magnetic. Not because they're perfect, because they're real. And real is what the world is starving for. Here's what's going to happen after today. You're going to wake up tomorrow, day 8, and the habits are going to feel harder again. Not because you're regressing, but because your nervous system is testing whether you're serious. It's going to throw every excuse at you. You already proved you can do this. You don't need to keep doing it every single day. Take a break. You've earned it. And if you listen to that voice, you'll be back where you started within a week. But if you do the habits anyway, not because you feel like it, but because this is who you are now, you'll cross a threshold. You'll move from someone trying to change to someone who has changed. And that identity is permanent. Not because you'll never struggle again, but because struggle won't define you anymore. It'll just be part of the process. So, here's my challenge to you. Do the 5 habits for 30 more days. Not 7, 30. Because 7 days proves you can change. 30 days proves the change is real. And after 30 days, you won't need to force the habits anymore. They'll be automatic. The morning disruption will be how you start your day, not something you have to remind yourself to do. Difficult conversations will be your default, not something you avoid until you can't anymore. Movement will be non-negotiable, not something you fit in if you have time. Curated consumption will be natural, not something you have to white-knuckle through. The gratitude inversion will be how you process life, not a journaling exercise. And when that happens, you won't just be someone who completed a challenge, you'll be someone who transformed their entire operating system. Someone who doesn't need motivation because discipline is their default. Someone who doesn't avoid discomfort because they've learned it's the price of growth. Someone who doesn't wait for permission because they've given it to themselves. That person is unstoppable. And that person is you. Not someday, not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel ready. Right now. You've already proved it. 7 days, 5 habits, 1 unrecognizable life. Now do it again and again until it's not something you do, it's who you are. Welcome to day 7. This is the last day of the beginning and the first day of everything else.
Chapter 11. Day 7. The Identity Shift. You woke up different this morning. Maybe you didn't notice it immediately. Maybe it felt like every other morning this week. Alarm goes off, feet hit the floor. You move through the disruption almost on autopilot now.
But something fundamental has changed. 7 days ago, you were someone who talked about change. Today, you're someone who does it. That's not a motivational platitude. That's a documented shift in your neural architecture. Neuroscientist Dr. Joe Dispenza's research shows that it takes approximately 7 days of consistent new behavior to begin overriding old neural patterns. You're not just practicing habits, you've been literally rewiring your brain. The pathways that used to fire automatically when your alarm went off, hit snooze, reach for phone, start day in reactive mode. Those pathways are weakening. New pathways are forming, ones that say, I wake up when I say I will. I honor my commitments to myself. I don't negotiate with comfort. This is the identity shift. And it's the most critical moment in the entire transformation process, because this is where most people make a fatal mistake. They think they've arrived. They've completed the 7 days. They feel different. They assume the work is done. And they celebrate by taking a break. Just for today, I've earned it. I'll get back to it tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. Not because they're weak, but because they misunderstood what just happened. The last 7 days weren't about completing a challenge. They were about installing new software. And software that's only been running for 7 days is fragile. One interruption, one skip, one I'll do it later, and the old programming boots back up like it never left. You're at the threshold. One step forward and the new identity becomes permanent. One step back and it all evaporates like it was never real. So here's what we're going to do today on day 7. We're going to lock it in, not with motivation, not with inspiration, with evidence. You're going to spend 30 minutes today documenting the transformation, not for social media, not for anyone else, for you. Because 6 months from now, when you're tired and doubting and wondering if any of this matters, you're going to need proof that you're capable of transformation. Today, you create that proof. Here's the documentation process. Part 1, the contrast. 10 minutes. Open your notebook, draw a line down the middle of the page. On the left side, write who I was 7 days ago. On the right side, write who I am today. Now fill it in. Be specific, be honest, be ruthless. Not generic statements like, I wasn't motivated versus I'm motivated now. Specific behaviors, observable changes. 7 days ago, I hit snooze 3 times every morning. I avoided a conversation with my business partner for 2 weeks. I hadn't intentionally moved my body in months. I spent 3 hours a day on social media. I went to bed feeling like I wasted another day. Today, I wake up at 5:30 a.m. without negotiating. I have the conversation and we're implementing new boundaries. I've moved my body for 30 minutes every single day. I haven't opened Instagram in 4 days and I don't miss it. I go to bed knowing I kept every promise I made to myself. Look at that contrast. That's not improvement. That's transformation. And it happened in 7 days because you stopped waiting and started doing. Part 2, the evidence. 10 minutes. Now, write down every single thing you did this week that the old version of you said was impossible. Every morning you woke up early when you were exhausted. Every conversation you had when you were terrified. Every workout you completed when your body was screaming to stop. Every time you chose creation over consumption. Every struggle you found a gift in. List them all. Every single one. Because this list is your ammunition against doubt. When your brain tells you you can't do hard things, you have documented proof that you already did. When fear tells you you're not strong enough, you have evidence that you are. When the old identity tries to reassert itself, you have a record of the new identity you've already built. This isn't arrogance, this is architecture. You're building a foundation of evidence that future you can stand on when the ground feels unstable. Part 3, the commitment. 10 minutes. Finally, you're going to write a contract with yourself. Not a vague intention, a specific, non-negotiable commitment. Here's the framework. For the next 30 days, I commit to the 5 habits specifically, the consequences if I break the commitment, the reward when I complete it. Make it real, make it uncomfortable, make it binding. Example, for the next 30 days, I commit to waking at 5:30 a.m. and completing the 30-minute morning disruption, having at least one difficult conversation per week, moving my body for 30 minutes daily, no exceptions, consuming 30 minutes of intentional content and creating 30 minutes daily, completing the gratitude inversion every night. If I break this commitment, I will donate $500 to a cause I oppose. When I complete this commitment, I will invest in the course, equipment, or experience I've been telling myself I can't afford. Sign it. Date it. Put it somewhere you'll see it every single day. This is your anchor when motivation fades and discipline is all you have left. Hey, pause and drop a comment. What's one piece of evidence from this week that proves you're different now? Name one thing you did that the old you couldn't. Make it real. Now let's talk about what happens next. Day 8 is going to test everything. The newness is gone. The adrenaline of starting something new has faded. You're going to wake up and the habits are going to feel like obligations instead of opportunities. This is normal. This is expected. This is where transformation becomes permanent or evaporates. Here's what separates the people who transform from the people who just try. The people who transform understand that discipline isn't about feeling motivated. It's about acting regardless of how you feel. They don't do the morning disruption because it feels good. They do it because they committed to it. They don't have difficult conversations because they enjoy conflict. They have them because clarity matters more than comfort. They don't move their body because they love exercise. They move it because they respect themselves enough to keep their promises. The feeling follows the action, never the other way around. So when day 8 arrives and you don't feel like doing the habits, you're going to do them anyway. Not begrudgingly, not while complaining to yourself about how hard it is, with the quiet certainty of someone who knows who they are. I'm someone who wakes up at 5:30 a.m. I'm someone who speaks truth even when it's uncomfortable. I'm someone who moves their body daily. I'm someone who curates what enters their mind. I'm someone who finds gifts in struggles.
Those aren't aspirations anymore. They're descriptions of who you've already become. And when you act from identity instead of trying to build it, everything changes. You're not forcing yourself to do hard things. You're simply being yourself. And yourself is someone who does hard things. Here's the research that explains why this works. Dr. B.J. Fogg, behavior scientist at Stanford, discovered that identity-based habits are significantly more durable than outcome-based habits. When you say, I want to lose weight, and you don't, you feel like you failed at a goal. When you say, I'm someone who takes care of their body, and you skip a workout, you feel like you betrayed your identity. The second one creates much stronger internal accountability. You can miss a goal and shrug it off. You can't betray your identity without feeling it deeply. That's why the last 7 days weren't about achieving outcomes. They were about establishing identity. And now that identity is established, the outcomes will follow automatically. You don't need to white-knuckle your way through hard conversations anymore. You're someone who values honesty. So honest conversations are natural. You don't need to force yourself to wake up early. You're someone who honors their word. So waking up when you said you would is non-negotiable. You don't need to resist distraction. You're someone who curates their attention. So intentional consumption is automatic. The behaviors flow from the identity, not the other way around. Let me tell you what happened on my day 8. I woke up and I didn't want to do any of it. The morning disruption felt tedious.
The idea of moving my body felt exhausting. I wanted to sleep in, scroll my phone, take a day off. And for a moment, I considered it. I'd done 7 days, that was good, right? I could rest, I deserved it. But then I looked at the documentation I'd written the night before, the contrast between who I was and who I'd become, the evidence of what I'd accomplished, the commitment I'd signed. And I realized taking a day off wasn't rest, it was retreat. It was the old identity trying to reclaim territory. So I got up, I did the disruption, I moved, I created, I inverted. And by the end of day 8, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: respect for myself. Not because I did something extraordinary, because I kept my word when it was hard. And that respect compounded every single day after. Within 30 days, I was unrecognizable. Not to other people, they noticed, but slowly. To myself. I looked in the mirror and saw someone who could be trusted. Someone who didn't make empty promises. Someone who said they'd do something and then did it. That person could do anything. And so can you. Today's day 7, the completion of the first cycle. But it's not the end. It's barely the beginning. You've proven you can change for 7 days. Now prove you can change for 30. Then 90. Then a year. Until change isn't something you do. It's just who you are. Someone who evolves, who grows, who refuses to stay the same when better is possible. That person doesn't need this audiobook anymore. That person is the audiobook. Living proof that transformation isn't a theory. It's a decision, executed daily, until the decision becomes identity. You made the decision 7 days ago. Today, you become the identity. Tomorrow, you prove it's permanent. And the day after that, you stop counting. Because this isn't a streak you're maintaining. It's a life you're living. Welcome to who you are now. Chapter 12. The person you were dies today. There's a version of you that has to die for the new you to live. This isn't metaphor. This isn't dramatic language designed to sound profound. This is the literal truth of transformation. The you that hits snooze until the last possible second, that person has to die. The you that avoided difficult conversations and let resentment build, that person has to die. The you that consumed endlessly and created nothing, that person has to die. The you that saw obstacles as evidence of unworthiness instead of opportunities for growth, that person has to die. And you have to kill them. Not with violence, not with self-hatred, but with consistent, relentless refusal to be that person anymore. Every time you wake up at 5:30 a.m. when the old you would have slept until 7, you're killing the old identity. Every time you speak truth when the old you would have stayed silent, you're killing the old identity. Every time you move your body when the old you would have stayed sedentary, you're killing the old identity. Every time you create when the old you would have consumed, you're killing the old identity. Every time you find the gift in struggle when the old you would have spiraled into victimhood, you're killing the old identity. This is the death that leads to life. And today, on day 7, you're officiating the funeral. Here's what most people don't understand about change. You can't become someone new while still being someone old. You can't add new habits on top of an old identity and expect transformation. The old identity will sabotage the new habits every single time because its survival depends on you staying the same. So you have to kill it completely, without mercy. This sounds harsh. It should, because transformation is violent. Not to others, to the parts of you that are keeping you small. The part that seeks comfort over growth, it has to die. The part that needs external validation to feel worthy, it has to die. The part that makes excuses instead of taking responsibility, it has to die. The part that waits for permission instead of giving it to yourself, it has to die. You've been at war with these parts of yourself for years, trying to negotiate with them, trying to compromise. Today, the war ends. Not with a treaty, with a victory. Drop a comment. What part of your old identity are you killing today? Name it specifically, because you can't kill what you won't acknowledge. Here's the process. You're going to write a eulogy for the old you. Seriously, I want you to open your notebook and write this. Today, I say goodbye to the version of myself who, and then list everything. Everything that version of you did that kept you stuck. Example, today I say goodbye to the version of myself who waited for motivation instead of acting from discipline, avoided conflict even when honesty was necessary, numbed discomfort with distraction instead of sitting with it, consumed other people's success instead of building my own, made the same promises and broke them repeatedly, valued being liked over being respected, chose comfort over growth every single time. That person served me once. They kept me safe when safety was what I needed. But I don't need safety anymore. I need growth. And growth requires becoming someone that version of me could never be. So today, I let them go, with gratitude for what they protected me from, and with finality because I'm ready for what's next. They're dead, and I'm alive in a way they never were. Write this. Actually write it. Every word. Because something happens when you formalize the death of the old identity. Your nervous system stops trying to resurrect it. As long as the old you is still a possibility, something you might return to if things get hard, you'll never fully commit to the new you. But when you make it clear, in writing, that the old you is dead, your brain stops offering it as an option. The neural pathways that supported that identity begin to atrophy. The new pathways strengthen, and within weeks, the old you becomes genuinely unrecognizable. You'll look back at who you were 7 days ago and feel like you're reading about a stranger.
That's not denial. That's growth. Now, here's the hard part. The people around you are going to try to resurrect the old you. Not maliciously, but because your transformation makes them uncomfortable. When you change, you hold up a mirror to everyone who hasn't. And most people don't like what they see. So they'll offer you comfort. You don't have to wake up that early every day. You're being too hard on yourself. You need to relax. You're not fun anymore. They'll frame it as concern. It's not. It's projection. They want you to return to who you were because your old identity made them feel better about their own stagnation. Your new identity confronts them with the possibility that they could change too. And that possibility is terrifying. So they'll unconsciously try to pull you back. The friend who always wanted to grab drinks will suddenly be offended that you're prioritizing your morning routine. The family member who never questioned your choices will suddenly have opinions about how you're overdoing it. The colleague who used to commiserate with you about how hard everything is will distance themselves now that you're not playing that game anymore. Let them. Your transformation doesn't require their approval, and their resistance doesn't invalidate your progress. This is part of the death. You're not just killing the old identity. You're killing the old relationships that were built to support that identity. Some relationships will evolve. The people who genuinely love you will adjust and celebrate your growth. Some won't, and those people will fall away. That's not loss, that's alignment. You're making room for relationships that support who you're becoming instead of who you were. If this is hitting hard, if you're realizing how much resistance is coming, not just from you, but from the people around you, hit subscribe.
Because you need to hear this. 85% of people won't. They'll consume this, feel moved, and never act. Don't be that person. Subscribing tells me this matters to you, that you're serious, that you want me to keep creating transformations like this. Do it now. Here's what the death of the old identity looks like in practice. Old you wakes up tired, hits snooze, starts the day reactive and rushed. New you wakes at 5:30 a.m., sits in silence, moves with intention, starts the day in control. When the alarm goes off tomorrow and your body wants to stay in bed, you're not fighting laziness. You're killing the old identity that says comfort matters more than commitment. Old you sees a problem, complains about it, and waits for someone else to fix it. New you sees a problem, identifies the lesson, and takes action immediately. When something goes wrong tomorrow and your first impulse is to spiral, you're not managing anxiety. You're killing the old identity that says difficulty equals disaster. Old you consumes endlessly, creates nothing, and wonders why life feels empty. New you creates daily, consumes intentionally, builds something that didn't exist before. When distraction tempts you tomorrow and your brain wants the dopamine hit of scrolling, you're not resisting temptation. You're killing the old identity that says other people's lives are more interesting than your own. Every choice is a vote for one identity or the other. And by day 7, you voted enough times that the new identity is winning. But it's not permanent yet. It won't be permanent for weeks, maybe months. The old identity is dying, but it's not dead yet. It's going to thrash. It's going to fight. It's going to use every weapon it has to try to survive. And you're going to keep killing it. Not with hatred, with indifference. You're going to stop engaging with the voice that says you can't. Stop debating with the part of you that wants to quit. Stop negotiating with the identity that wants you to stay small. You're just going to act as the person you're becoming. And every action is a death blow to who you were. Until one day, and this day will come sooner than you think, the old identity stops fighting. Not because you defeated it in battle, but because you starved it of attention. And without attention, identities die quietly. By day 30, the old you will be a ghost, a memory of someone you used to be, barely recognizable. By day 90, even the ghost will be gone. And you'll stand in front of the mirror and see someone you genuinely respect. Not someone perfect, not someone who never struggles. Someone who keeps their word, someone who does hard things, and someone who chose to evolve instead of staying safe. That person is being born today. And the labor is painful. Birth always is. But on the other side of this pain is a life you can't even imagine yet. A life where discipline is default, where growth is natural, where transformation isn't something you pursue, it's something you are. The old you dies today. The new you lives forever. Unless you let the old one resurrect. So don't. Keep doing the habits. Keep honoring your word. Keep becoming who you said you'd be. And in 30 days, when someone asks what changed, you'll smile. Because you'll know something they don't. Nothing changed. You just stopped pretending to be someone you weren't. And the person you actually are? That person is unstoppable.
Chapter 13. Beyond the Week. Living as Proof. 7 days is over. You did it.
You woke up early when you were exhausted. You had conversations that terrified you. You moved your body through resistance. You curated your mind when distraction was easier. You found gifts in struggles when victimhood would have been simpler. You kept every promise you made to yourself for 7 consecutive days. And if you're waiting for me to congratulate you, to tell you you've arrived, to say the hard part is over, I won't. Because the hard part is just beginning. Everything you've done this week was training, preparation, the installation phase. Now comes the real work, living it. Not for 7 days, not for 30, not for 90, forever. Because transformation isn't a destination you reach and then maintain. It's a direction you choose and then recommit to. Every single day for the rest of your life. The habits you've built this week aren't the finish line. They're the starting blocks. And what you do next, in the days, weeks, and months after this initial transformation, will determine whether you actually changed or just experimented with change. Here's the brutal truth most people don't want to hear. Most people will quit in the next 72 hours. Not because the habits don't work, but because the initial motivation has evaporated, the newness has worn off, and they're left with the reality that sustainable transformation is quiet, unglamorous, and relentless. They'll tell themselves they'll get back to it Monday. They won't. They'll tell themselves they proved they could do it, so they don't need to keep doing it. They're wrong. They'll tell themselves life got busy, circumstances changed, it wasn't the right time after all. Those are all lies the old identity tells to reclaim control. You're not going to listen because you understand something most people never learn. The person you become is built in the days when nobody's watching, when there's no external reward, when the only thing motivating you is the commitment you made to yourself. Those days are where legends are made. Not the days when you feel inspired, the days when you feel nothing and do it anyway. So let's talk about what living as proof actually looks like. Living as proof means you stop talking about what you're going to do and you just do it. The old you needed to announce intentions, post about goals, tell people about the changes you were making. That's not accountability. That's seeking validation. The new you doesn't announce. You demonstrate. You don't tell people you're waking up early. They notice you're different at 9 a.m. because you've already been awake for 3.5 hours. You don't tell people you're getting in shape. They notice 6 months later when your entire physique has transformed. You don't tell people you're working on a project. They notice when you launch something that didn't exist before. You stop performing growth and you start living it. Living as proof means you become the person others don't believe is possible. Right now, if you told most people what you've done this week, they'd be impressed for about 30 seconds and then they'd explain why they couldn't do it. I have kids. I have a demanding job. I don't have your discipline. It's different for you. Let them believe that. Don't try to convince them otherwise. Just keep going. Keep building. Keep evolving. And in 6 months, when they see the cumulative result of daily discipline, they won't have excuses anymore. They'll have a choice. Stay the same or do the work. Most will stay the same. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to become undeniable proof that transformation is possible for anyone willing to stop negotiating with their potential. Living as proof means you scale the habits, not abandon them. Here's where most people make a critical error. They think that once the habits become easy, they should add more habits. Wrong. When the habits become easy, you don't add more. You deepen the ones you have. The morning disruption doesn't need to become a 2-hour routine. It needs to become so ingrained that you can't imagine starting your day any other way. The difficult conversations don't need to multiply. They need to become your default mode of communication, where honesty is automatic, not effortful. The movement doesn't need to become professional athlete-level training. It needs to become as non-negotiable as brushing your teeth. The consumption curation doesn't need to expand into a complicated system. It needs to become an instinct. You naturally gravitate toward what builds you and repel what diminishes you. The gratitude inversion doesn't need to become a dissertation. It needs to become how you process reality, automatically finding value in everything, especially difficulty. Depth, not breadth. Mastery, not variety. These 5 habits, executed with precision and presence for the rest of your life, will take you further than 100 habits executed half-heartedly. Hey, this is important. Drop a comment right now. What's the one habit from this week that you know you need to protect at all costs? The one that, if you maintain it, everything else stays intact. Name it. Now, let's talk about what happens when you inevitably break the streak. Because you will. Life will happen. Sickness, crisis, travel, unexpected chaos. One morning, you'll sleep through your alarm. One day, you'll skip the movement. One night, you'll forget the gratitude inversion. And the voice will whisper, "See, you failed. You're not disciplined after all. Might as well quit." That voice is the old identity trying to use one mistake to justify complete surrender. Here's what you do instead. The 24-hour recovery rule. When you miss a habit, you have exactly 24 hours to reinstate it. Not get back on track next week, not start fresh Monday, 24 hours. Miss your morning routine? Do it tonight before bed, even if it's modified. Skip your movement? Do 10 minutes right now, wherever you are. Forget the gratitude inversion? Do it the next morning before anything else. The goal isn't perfection, it's resilience. Resilience is the ability to fail and recover immediately without spiraling into shame or using the failure as permission to quit. You're not building a perfect record. You're building a person who doesn't stay down. And that person is infinitely more powerful than someone who never falls. Research from the University of Scranton shows that 92% of people who set New Year's resolutions fail by February. But the 8% who succeed aren't the ones who never stumbled. They're the ones who recovered faster. They missed a day and did it the next day anyway. They had a setback and treated it as information, not identity. They failed and kept their world to themselves anyway. That's the difference between transformation and experimentation. Experimentation says, "I'll try this and see how it goes." Transformation says, "This is who I am now. Failure doesn't change that. It just means I get back up." Let me tell you what happened to me on day 37. I got sick. Not seriously, but enough that I couldn't move my body the way I'd been doing for 36 consecutive days. And for the first time since starting, I broke the streak. The old me would have used that as permission to stop everything. The streak is broken. Might as well take the week off. I'll start fresh next month. But I changed enough by that point that the thought didn't even fully form. I did the morning disruption from bed. 10 minutes of silence, 10 minutes of gentle stretching instead of intense movement, 10 minutes of intention setting. It wasn't the same as the full routine, but it was enough to send the signal to my nervous system, we don't quit just because conditions aren't perfect. And the next day, when I felt better, I was right back to the full routine. The streak broke, but the identity didn't. And that's what matters. You're not maintaining habits. You're maintaining identity. And identity doesn't crumble because of one bad day. It crumbles when you use one bad day as evidence that you're not who you've been becoming. Living as proof means you become someone others can follow. Not because you're perfect, because you're consistent. People don't need more inspiration. They need more demonstration. They need to see someone who struggles and keeps going. Someone who fails and recovers. Someone who doesn't have it all figured out but refuses to use that as an excuse to quit. That's you now. Whether you realize it or not, people are watching. They're watching to see if this is real or if it's another phase. They're watching to see if you're actually different or if you're just performing difference. They're watching to see if transformation is possible for normal people, or if it's only for the exceptional. And over the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you're going to show them, not with words, with your life. You're going to be the person who wakes up early, even on weekends. You're going to be the person who speaks truth, even when it costs you comfort. You're going to be the person who moves their body, even when they don't feel like it. You're going to be the person who creates instead of consumes. You're going to be the person who finds gifts in every struggle. And people are going to notice, not immediately, not dramatically, but over time, they're going to look at you and think, something's different. They're different. And a few of them, not all, maybe not even most, but a few, are going to ask how. And when they do, you're not going to give them theory. You're going to give them this. I decided to become someone who keeps promises to themselves, and then I kept that decision every single day until it became who I am. That's it. That's the secret. There's no hack, no shortcut, no magic formula. Just a decision and the daily execution of that decision until decision becomes identity. You've made the decision. You've executed it for 7 days. Now you execute it for the rest of your life. Not because you have to, because you can't imagine being anyone else. The person who hits snooze and wastes mornings, you don't recognize them anymore. The person who avoids truth and accumulates resentment, they're a stranger. The person who consumes endlessly and creates nothing, they don't exist in your reality anymore. You're someone else now. Someone who transforms. Not once, continuously. For the rest of your life. That's what living as proof means. And it starts today, again. And tomorrow, again. And the day after that, again. Until again isn't effort. It's just who you are.
Chapter 14. The Unbreakable Pattern. There's a pattern that governs everything. Not just your habits, your entire life. It's the pattern that determines whether you succeed or fail, grow or stagnate, transform or remain exactly as you are. And most people never see it because they're too focused on outcomes to notice the process that creates them. The pattern is this: small actions, repeated consistently, compound into undeniable results. Not complicated, not sexy, not the kind of thing that makes for viral content, but it's the truth that separates the 1% who transform from the 99% who just talk about it. You already know this intellectually. Everyone does. But knowing and living are galaxies apart. For the last 7 days, you've been living it. You've been executing small actions, 30 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and trusting that they compound into something meaningful. Now, we're going to make that pattern unbreakable. Because the difference between temporary change and permanent transformation is whether the pattern becomes stronger than the circumstances trying to break it. Here's what I mean. Right now, the 5 habits require conscious effort. You have to remind yourself to do them. You have to override resistance. You have to choose them deliberately. That's normal. That's the beginning stage of any new pattern. But if they stay at this level, conscious, effortful, deliberate, you'll eventually stop doing them. Because willpower is finite. Motivation is unreliable. Circumstances change. The only way these habits become permanent is if they transition from conscious choice to unconscious automation. From, I should do the morning disruption, to, it's 5:30 a.m., which means it's time for the morning disruption. From, I need to have this difficult conversation, to, honesty is how I communicate, so this conversation is inevitable. From, I should move my body, to, it's 6 a.m., which means it's time to move. From, I should consume intentionally, to, junk content isn't even appealing anymore. From, I should find the gift in the struggle, to, my brain automatically hunts for lessons in difficulty. That transition from effortful to automatic is what makes the pattern unbreakable. And it happens through a specific process that most people never complete. The 4 stages of pattern installation. Stage 1. Conscious incompetence. Days 1 through 3. You know what you need to do,
but you're terrible at it. You forget, you resist, you execute poorly. Everything feels awkward and unnatural. This is where most people quit. They assume that because it's hard, it's not for them. But hard doesn't mean wrong. Hard means new. You made it through this stage. You're past it. Stage 2, conscious competence. Days 4 through 14. You're executing the habits, but it still requires conscious effort. You have to remind yourself, push through resistance, make deliberate choices. This is where you are right now. The habits are working. You're seeing results, but it's not effortless yet. This stage is the danger zone because you're competent enough that you think you can relax, but not automatic enough that the pattern sustains itself. If you ease up now, you'll slide back to stage 1 within days. The only way through stage 2 is relentless consistency for at least 2 more weeks. Stage 3, unconscious competence. Days 15 through 30. The habits start happening automatically. You wake up at 5:30 without an alarm. You have difficult conversations without overthinking. You move your body without negotiating. The pattern is stronger than the resistance. This is where transformation becomes real, where the new identity isn't something you're trying to build, it's something you've already built. Real talk. Drop a comment. Where are you right now? Stage 2? On the edge of stage 3? Be honest, because clarity is the first step to progression. Now, let's talk about what breaks patterns, even good ones, because understanding the threats is how you defend against them. Pattern breaker number 1, the novelty trap. New habits are exciting. They give you a dopamine hit because they're different, but dopamine fades. And when it does, people chase it by starting new habits instead of deepening the existing ones.
They abandon the morning disruption to try meditation. Then they abandon meditation to try cold showers. Then they abandon cold showers to try journaling. They're not building anything. They're collecting. The antidote. Commit to these 5 habits for 90 days before you even consider adding anything else. Depth beats variety every single time. Pattern breaker number 2, the complexity escalation. People assume that if a habit is working, making it more complicated will make it work better. So they turn the 10-minute silence into a 45-minute meditation. They turn the 30-minute movement into a 2-hour gym session. They turn the 3-line gratitude inversion into a 3-page journal entry. And then they burn out. The antidote. Keep the habits minimal. Resist the urge to expand them. The goal is sustainability, not intensity. Pattern breaker number 3, the permission slip. 1 vacation, 1 sick day, 1 stressful week, and people use it as permission to abandon everything. I'll get back to it when things settle down. Things never settle down. Life is inherently chaotic. The antidote, the 24-hour recovery rule. Miss a habit? Reinstate it within 24 hours. No exceptions. Pattern breaker number 4, the comparison thief. You see someone else doing more, doing it better, doing it differently, and suddenly your pattern feels inadequate. So you either quit because you feel behind, or you abandon your pattern to copy theirs. The antidote. Your transformation is yours. It doesn't need to look like anyone else's. Comparison is the enemy of consistency. These 4 pattern breakers have destroyed more transformations than lack of discipline ever has. Recognize them, name them when they appear, and refuse to let them derail you. Because here's the truth. The pattern you've built this week is worth protecting. It's the foundation of everything else you're going to build. Your career success? It starts with the morning disruption giving you clarity and focus. Your relationship depth? It starts with the difficult conversations creating honesty and trust. Your physical vitality? It starts with the daily movement building strength and resilience. Your mental clarity? It starts with curated consumption protecting your attention. Your emotional stability? It starts with the gratitude inversion reframing reality. These 5 habits aren't just routines. They're the infrastructure of an extraordinary life. And infrastructure doesn't need to be exciting. It needs to be solid.
So you're going to protect this pattern like your life depends on it, because it does. Not your survival, your potential. The person you're capable of becoming requires this pattern to exist. Without it, you'll default back to who you were, and who you were couldn't get you where you want to go. If this chapter just shifted something for you, if you're realizing this isn't about 7 days, it's about the rest of your life, drop a comment. What's the one thing you're committing to protect no matter what? Say it out loud. Make it binding. Let me tell you what happened when my pattern became unbreakable. It was around day 60. The habits were automatic by that point. I wasn't thinking about them. I was just living them. And then I had the worst week I had had in years. A major client pulled out of a contract. A relationship I valued ended abruptly. I got injured during a workout and couldn't move the way I'd been moving. Everything that could go wrong did. And the old me, the pre-transformation me, would have collapsed, would have used that week as evidence that nothing I did mattered, that life was chaotic and uncontrollable, that there was no point in trying. But the new me didn't even consider quitting the pattern. I woke up at 5:30, modified the silence when my mind was spiraling, adjusted the movement to accommodate the injury, had the difficult conversations that the situations required, consumed content about resilience and applied it immediately, found the gifts in every struggle even when it felt impossible. And by the end of that week, I wasn't broken. I was stronger. Not because nothing bad happened, but because the pattern held me together when everything else was falling apart. That's when I knew it was unbreakable. Not because it was perfect, but because it was mine and I'd built it strong enough to withstand anything. You're building that same strength right now. Day by day, habit by habit, choice by choice. And in 60 days, 90 days, a year, you'll face your own version of the worst week. And the pattern will hold you. Not because you're special, but because you built something that doesn't break just because life gets hard. That's the gift of these 7 days. Not the transformation itself, but the proof that transformation is possible. And if it's possible once, it's possible forever, as long as you protect the pattern. So protect it, like your life depends on it. Because the life you actually want, it does.
Chapter 15. The First Day of Everything Else. This is the end of the audiobook, but it's not the end of anything. It's the beginning of everything. 7 days ago, you were someone who wanted to change. Today, you're someone who did. That difference between wanting and doing is the only difference that matters. And now you stand at a crossroads. One path leads back to who you were. It's familiar, comfortable, safe. The habits fade, the momentum dissipates, and within 2 weeks, you're scrolling at midnight, hitting snooze until the last possible second, avoiding conversations, numbing discomfort, wondering why nothing ever changes. That path is always available. It will always be the easier choice. The other path leads forward, into the person you're becoming. It's uncertain, uncomfortable, demanding. The habits continue, the momentum compounds, and within 30 days, you're unrecognizable, not just to others, but to yourself. That path requires daily commitment. It will always be the harder choice. But here's what you know now that you didn't know 7 days ago. Hard doesn't mean impossible. Uncomfortable doesn't mean unbearable. And the person you're capable of becoming is worth every moment of discomfort it takes to get there. You've proven it. 5 habits, 7 days, 1 transformed identity. But identity isn't something you achieve and then preserve like a trophy. It's something you choose and then reinforce every single day through action. So let's talk about what happens next, not theoretically, but practically. The next 24 hours. Today, right now, you're going to set 3 alarms on your phone. Alarm 1, 5:30 a.m. tomorrow. Label it Morning Disruption, non-negotiable. Alarm 2, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Label it 30-minute creation block. Alarm 3, 9:30 p.m. Label it Gratitude and Version,
Find the gifts. These aren't suggestions. They're the architecture that keeps the pattern alive. You're not relying on memory or motivation. You're building external accountability until the internal accountability is strong enough to stand alone. The next 7 days. You're going to repeat this week exactly as you did it. Same habits, same sequence, same intensity. Not because you didn't get it the first time, because repetition is how patterns become permanent. Week 1 was installation. Week 2 is reinforcement. By the end of week 2, the habits won't feel new anymore. They'll feel natural. And natural is where transformation lives permanently. The next 30 days. You're going to track your execution, not your feelings about it, not whether it felt good, whether you did it. Create a simple chart. 5 habits across the top, 30 days down the side. Each day, you mark whether you completed each habit. Yes or no. No half credit. No, I did most of it. You either did it or you didn't. This isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. At the end of 30 days, you'll have a visual record of your transformation, and that record becomes evidence when doubt creeps in. The next 90 days. You're going to measure the compound effect. Take 3 measurements right now, today. 1. Your energy level on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you feel physically, mentally, emotionally right now? 2. Your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10. How much do you trust yourself to keep your word and do hard things? 3. Your clarity level on a scale of 1 to 10. How clear are you about who you are and what you're building? Write these numbers down.
Then on day 90, you're going to measure again. And you're going to see, documented, undeniable, how far you've come. Not because you hoped, because you acted. The next year, you're going to become the person other people use as proof that transformation is possible. Not by preaching, not by posting, by living. By being the person who wakes up at 5:30 every single day, by being the person who speaks truth even when it's uncomfortable, by being the person who moves their body regardless of how they feel, by being the person who creates more than they consume, by being the person who finds gifts in every struggle. And when people ask, and they will ask, you're going to tell them the truth. I decided to become someone who keeps promises to themselves, and then I kept that decision every single day until it became who I am. That's the only answer they need. Hey, this is the last call to drop a comment. Tell me, what's different now compared to 7 days ago? One specific thing. Make it real, make it public. Because accountability doesn't end when the audiobook does. Now, let's address the voice that's whispering right now. The one that's saying, this was good, but I don't know if I can sustain this forever. What if I fail? What if I'm not as strong as I think I am? That voice is the old identity making its final attempt to reclaim control. Here's what you need to understand. That voice will never fully disappear. There will always be a part of you that wants comfort over growth, that wants to quit when it gets hard, that wants to return to who you were because who you were required less. That's not a flaw. That's being human. The difference between who you were and who you are now isn't that the voice disappeared. It's that you stopped listening. You acknowledged it, you heard it, and then you did the thing anyway. That's the only skill that matters. Not silencing doubt, acting despite it. Not eliminating fear, moving through it. Not feeling motivated every day, showing up regardless. You've already demonstrated you can do this, 7 days straight. Now you just keep demonstrating it. 1 day at a time, one choice at a time, one habit at a time, until the demonstration becomes who you are. Let me tell you what happened to me 1 year after my initial 7 days. I was sitting in a coffee shop working on a project I've been avoiding for months, and I realized something profound. I wasn't forcing myself to work. I wasn't white-knuckling through resistance. I wasn't battling my impulses to distract myself. I was just working, because that's what I do. The person who would have scrolled for 30 minutes before starting, gone. The person who would have convinced themselves they needed more coffee, more time, more clarity before beginning, dead. I'd become someone who sits down and does the work. Not because it's easy, because that's my identity. And that identity was built in moments exactly like the one you're in right now. Moments where I could have quit,
Could have told myself I'll start again Monday. Could have used any of 1,000 excuses to let the pattern break. But I didn't. Not because I'm special, because I'd learned that keeping my word to myself was more valuable than temporary comfort. And over time, that lesson compounded into an entirely different life. The same will happen for you. Not overnight, not dramatically, but undeniably.
In 30 days, you'll notice you have more energy. In 60 days, you'll notice other people treating you differently because you carry yourself differently. In 90 days, you'll notice opportunities appearing that weren't there before, not because the world changed, but because you're finally capable of seeing and seizing them. In a year, you'll look back at who you were today and barely recognize them. And you'll be grateful they had the courage to start. If this transformation matters to you, if you want more content like this, more tools, more frameworks to keep evolving, hit subscribe right now. Here's the reality. 85% of people won't. They'll finish this audiobook, feel inspired for a day or two, and never think about it again. Don't be that person. Subscribing tells me you're serious, that this isn't just entertainment for you, it's fuel. Do it now, and I'll keep creating transformations like this one. Here's the final truth I need you to hear. You didn't need this audiobook. You needed permission. Permission to want more. Permission to demand more from yourself. Permission to believe that you're capable of transformation even when every past attempt has failed. I gave you that permission. But permission from me is worthless if you don't give it to yourself. So right now, before you close this and move on with your day, I need you to do one more thing. Say this out loud, not in your head, out loud. I am someone who keeps promises to myself. I am someone who does hard things. I am someone who transforms continuously. This is who I am now, and nothing, not circumstances, not setbacks, not fear, will convince me otherwise. Say it. Feel it. Mean it. Because words become thoughts, thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become actions, actions become identity, and identity becomes destiny. Your destiny isn't to stay who you were. It's to become who you're capable of being. And that person is extraordinary. Not because they never struggle, but because they never quit. Not because they're always motivated, but because they're always committed. And not because transformation is easy for them, but because they've decided it's worth it. You've already made that decision. You've already proven you can execute it. Now you just keep proving it. Today, tomorrow, the day after that, for the rest of your life. This is the end of the audiobook, and the first day of everything else. Welcome to who you are now. Hey, one more thing. Before you go, drop one final comment. Tell me what you're committing to for the next 30 days. Make it specific. Make it public. Because the transformation doesn't end here. It's just beginning. And I want to see where you take it. The 5 habits that change life in 1 week aren't magic. They're mirrors. Reflecting back the person you've always been capable of becoming if only you'd stopped waiting and started doing. You stopped waiting. Now keep doing. Forever.